given that this is going to be a talk on energy, what I'm hearing is that most people like to learn about herbs, if anything. So, and energy. And from a Taoist Chinese point of view, the two are interchangeable. You can't separate them. But we'll look at the herb side of it specifically, so that's great. Makes it really easy. Excuse me. So, I'll tell you a little bit about my own personal story first as to how I became interested in this. Basically, throughout most of my childhood, I was miserable and unhealthy and unhappy and stressed and tense. And my world seemed very bleak and very black, and I always was lacking in energy. You know, I was always chasing energy. I was actually brought up, you know, healthily by most people's standards. I was eating greens and no meat and no chemicals and all the rest of it for the first 5 years of my life. But despite that, I had really serious health problems anyway. One of the things that's tipped me off to the fact that there's more to health than diet, which I think some people sometimes forget. And when I got to school at last, I discovered sweets. And I became a full-on sugar addict because that gave me that little hit of energy. Oh, energy, you know, keep up with the other kids, and then soon crashed again. So that kind of kept me going until I was a teenager. And as a teenager, I discovered other drugs. First of all, coffee, right? Cigarettes, alcohol, excited. First of all, I felt like I knew how normal people felt, right? I actually had some energy, I actually had some motivation to participate in life and connect with other people. But it didn't last a very long. And that's basically how I continued up until my mid-20s, just getting by on constantly exhausting myself with using sugar and using stimulants to get me through the day. And the only challenge with that is that I was becoming more and more worn down, less and less stamina, less and less endurance, and more obvious signs of severe health deficiency, you know, more and more signs of severe toxicity. I'll give you an example of it. When I was around 25, I remember waking up one day and looking at my tongue, and it had a coating on it, but it wasn't just the usual white coating that people often get with candida and stuff. It was actually grey. All the tar in my body was actually, you know, spilling out. I was like, ugh, that is pretty foul, even by my standards. So, you know, that kind of gave me a wake-up call, like, wow, okay, you know, I'm getting really toxic. And there were a series of things like that. I kept being ill, you know, I didn't have severe autoimmune issues or anything, but I did have immune issues. I was constantly ill over, you know, something or other. And then I decided, you know what, enough. You know, I was spending several £100s a month on drugs to keep me going for the day, and I was spending several £100s a month on supplements and sometimes herbs, so that I didn't completely crash and collapse. And I thought this is, and treatments, maybe acupuncture and stuff as well. I thought this is stupid, you know, I can't keep, I may as well just go into full-on self-destruction, or I may as well get this health thing sorted once and for all. Because treading that middle line, which I perceive most people treading, is a pointless endeavour, right? So that's why, okay, I'm just going to do it properly. And so I went full-on dedicated into it, and I read about it, and I learned about it, and absorbed as much as I could, and I did everything that all the standard alternative stuff tells you to do, right? So I gave up smoking, obviously, you know, drinking, coffee, anything containing MSG, right? Hopefully most of you are familiar with what that is. It's in all processed foods, pretty much. It's a neurotoxin, very much to be avoided. Gave up sugar, gave up wheat, gave up dairy, gave up everything that's supposed to be bad for you, and started eating greens, started eating superfoods, and everyone kind of assured me that that's what's required to be healthy. And the response that my body had is feeling awful. I just felt terrible. I was more ill than ever, and this just continued and continued. And everyone was like, Elwyn, you are crazy. You've given up all your pleasures, right? You're drinking, you're smoking, your nice food, right? Your pizza or whatever, and you look awful. You sound awful. You're more ill than ever. What the hell are you doing? Good question, right? And so I think it's at that stage that a lot of people give up, back down, and just go back to what's familiar, right? And I know that's most of my clients, they've been there, you know, they've tried all the standard alternative stuff, and then for some people it works. I think it's a lot to do with how strong you are. If you're strong, if your organs are still strong, good for you, great, you know. But for a lot of us who are more challenged, just cutting out the bad stuff and that's it isn't enough. So then I went into different avenues. And the thing that first made the difference for me, the thing that first helped me to actually turn the corner, it wasn't like the salvation, but it helped me turn the corner, was when I discovered Chinese medicine. And I went to see an acupuncturist who was also a medical doctor back in China, so she was hardly really alternative. But she explained to me what was going on. And one of the things she said to me is, wow, I've never seen someone with kidneys as weak as yours at your age. You know, they were really run down. That's why I was having chronic ear infections. That's why I was having loads of food intolerances. That's why I was so depleted. That's why I was so easily stressed. That's why I was constantly thirsty. There were all these issues going on. And I went to the medical doctor, right? I'm sure most of you have had this experience. I feel like there's something wrong with my kidneys. No, they're fine. Perfect. I tested them. Anyway, Chinese medicine. So thank God. I'd say one of the specialities of Chinese medicine is that it's really good at helping you heal your kidneys particularly. I'd say in the Western world we tend to focus more on the alternative world, on the liver and the bowel, right? And that's what you hear about, detoxing, liver, bowel. Sorry? Yeah. Right. But in Chinese medicine they focus more on the kidneys, because the kidneys are a root of your body's energy. So I'm going to do a full training on all this in a bit, but that's just still explaining a bit about my story. And it was by working on tonifying my kidneys, by working on strengthening my kidneys, I actually started to get somewhere for the first time. I actually started to feel like, wow, life is livable and life is worthwhile. And like, this could actually happen. I'm not going to give up. And then I learned about cleansing full on, and I really did that, liver cleansing, bowel cleansing. Then I learned about raw foods, and overnight I was like 100% raw fooder. Did it for 2.25 years, like never touched anything cooked at all. So full on went into that. And I learned about alkalizing. It's awesome, great. Everything's green, loads of water, loads of minerals. That really helped, right? And at that point, you know what? I felt better, but I still didn't really feel good. You know, I was just okay again. And the thing that really pushed me over the edge is to get sugar, all forms of sugar out of my life. And that's not necessarily going to be true for all of you, but you know, get out all fruits, right? Get out all starches, just completely cut it out and deal with this thing which is commonly called candida once and for all. I did that, I did a full-on year with no sugar and various other strategies which I can talk about if you want as part of this talk, which really does resolve candida. So I think 98% of strategies out there that are supposed to resolve candida are useless in my experience. All they do is they temporarily make it die down and then it just comes right back again.
So then you must agree that the 80-10-10 idea that 80% fruit and 10% Telazana is totally off the kilter, right?
I mean, everyone is different, but
I understand that.
Yes, I'd say for the majority of people, especially in a damp climate, especially if they're not exercising all day like successful 80-10 people do, it's a complete waste of time.
I think so too. I just feel like that can't be working.
Absolutely. But you know, if you have a very hot, dry body, and if you are exercising all the time, and especially if you live in a hot, dry climate, could work well for you.
Different story, right?
Everyone is different. So yeah, that was, but you know, just for me at the moment, I'll get on to you in a little bit. It's teaching me first. So that was the thing that made a big difference to me. Then I did a full-on immune boosting, getting all parasites out of my body thing, and it was at that point that I turned the corner to the degree that I started helping people. It's like, yeah, I'm good now. I really have got there. I've arrived. Obviously, I haven't arrived. There's still more to do, but I was good enough, right? For the first time, my energy throughout my whole life, I don't know if you can relate to this, was always looking up and down, up and down, up and down, like a roller coaster. And my mood along with it, right? 1 minute I'd be good, next minute not so much, right? And it's by balancing blood sugar and getting candida out that at last I was just stable, you know? And suddenly life wasn't this endless drama, you know? And there wasn't this series of urgencies and stresses and oh my God, and this and that. And because really the reason that we have those in our lives and the reason we cultivate and create those in our lives, usually, is because we're so depleted. We're depleted in energy, but we're also depleted in the neurotransmitters and hormones that make us feel things. And so our baseline is just kind of drained and kind of numb. So we create all this stuff to get excited and anxious and nervous and upset about, just to give us a little boost, right? And finally getting off that cycle was absolutely awesome. And then what I realized, people just started coming to me all the time, asking me questions, as if they sensed I had something that they needed. And eventually I realized, you know what, why am I, because I was working in a raw food cafe at the time, and I kept being distracted by all the customers always wanting to know things from me, so I couldn't get on and make the breads. And then they'd be like, why is there no dehydrated bread now? People keep asking me questions. So eventually I realised, maybe I should be answering the questions and get someone else to make the bread. So,
right.
So that's what's led me to be here today to talk to you about health. That's my own journey in a nutshell. So, what that brings us to is this. I don't think that health is simple. One of the challenges that I find, the biggest challenge that I have, is people expect that it's going to be a magic pill. You know, it's just going to be take one thing, do this one thing, take this one product, buy this one course. People think that they have to just buy it and not actually go through it, right? Or whatever it is, buy this book, attend this seminar, and then I'll be fixed, right? And the reality is, no, getting healthy is a process, especially if you're severely depleted, right? And I know most people who are into health to the degree that regularly come and see talks like this, that's probably what's going on, that you're severely depleted. And even if you're not, you know other people in your life who are, so this is still relevant to you, right? So, what I learned, the biggest distinction that made a huge difference to my life is that there isn't just one type of energy, there's actually 3 types of energy, okay? So we phase into the talk about herbalism now. Are you happy for me to do that? Yeah? Going to weave back and forth. This is where I normally have a whiteboard and write it all down for you so you can keep track of me, but if I completely lose you and I'm going too quickly, then tell me to pause and recap.
One last question before you go into the herbalism. That's about the depletion of the minerals too, right? Because like our salts are depleted, so all the fruits and stuff that our foods that we eat are depleted, so the body doesn't get enough minerals, and that's why people like eat all kinds of foods because the body is craving minerals, but it's not getting what it really needs.
Absolutely, yes, right. And that's part of the format.
Don't
worry, we're going to cover that. You're absolutely right. So we have 3 different types of energies. Okay. Now, this is what I love about Chinese herbalism. These are just like herbs, just like the ones that you've got in there, right? Basically, but they're usually, most of them are from China. Actually, a lot of them are around. Shaga tends to be more from Russia, and yeah, but these tend to be Asian herbs at least. These are no different really from the ones that we've got in the kitchen, except for they are dried, powdered, pre-packaged, so that you can make them like instant coffee, right? So they're handier. Is there some advantage to having herbs fresh? Yes, absolutely. If you can get fresh herbs, please do go for it. So this is not an alternative to having fresh green herbs in your life. This is like an adjunct, right? A lot of people think that Chinese herbalism is very complicated, and the way that I look at it, it's actually really simple if you understand these few simple distinctions I'm going to teach you today, right? So I'm not going to teach you about every single Chinese herb, because there's over 5,000 of them. I might mention a few, right? But what I'm going to teach you is how you can understand any herb, in fact pretty much any substance in the world. You can see, which category does it fit in? Is that right for me? Is that important for me? Which should I prioritise, right? And we do that basically by understanding the 3 energies, commonly referred to as the 3 treasures, right? And the 5 organ systems of the body, which relate to the 5 elements. And they're interconnected too. So I'm going to give you examples of each one. I'm going to explain them in theory. I'm also going to give you a little exercise to rate yourself and how you're doing in each of these energies. Okay. So you can either write that down, you can speak out loud to the audience and the whole world if you like, or you can keep that to yourself. It's entirely up to you. So we've got 3 basic types of energy. By the way, who's heard me talk about this before? Anyone?
On your video.
A couple of people. Okay, excellent. Sorry. On YouTube, okay. So it might be excellent, so most of you aren't, so treat it as if it's a fresh subject. Excellent. So, the most commonly understood form of energy that we're aware of in the West is what the Taoists call qi. In fact, do we want to hear what Taoist means? Do you want a quick recap on Taoism? So Taoism, in England, in the Western world, we tend to have like conservatives and liberals, conservative and Labour. We have the more right wing and the more left wing. Well, over in China, they will have Confucianism and Taoism. So Confucianism is more of a tool for social control, so about organising society. And Taoism is more the individualistic one. So Confucian tends to be more what benefits everyone else, the community, and that's why in China they do have a very strong sense of other people in the community being primary. But Taoism is all about definitely being at one with nature rather than what serves the society necessarily. It's what's most in alignment with nature, and what's most in alignment with being a member of the heaven and the earth. So how to ground with the earth and connect to the earth, and how to connect to the heavens, your destiny, your true purpose, your spirit, whatever you might want to call it. So that's the Taoist perspective, whereas the Confucian perspective is more left and right. It's more out there. What's my neighbour going to think? What am I going to serve my neighbour? What am I going to do to, right? So it's a different perspective. And of course, a combination of both is appropriate. So the Taoists were very much focused on their relationship with the heavens and with the earth. And the way that they saw it, a human being is a bridge between the yin and the yang, the heaven and the earth, right? They didn't see the earth as being bad and dirty like some Western religions try and make us think, you know, heaven is awesome and material things are a bit yucky and we should, you know, so the idea of shame about the body and shame about sex and all that sort of thing, that doesn't really exist in Taoism because it's the body, you know, that's what it is. So their idea was very much that we are a bridge between heaven and earth, and so our job is to be that bridge. And one of the conclusions they came to is that the longer you have to be able to do that, the better off you are. And so that was why they had such a predilection and compulsive obsession almost with longevity. So lasting as long as possible, right? Now in the West we have more of a thing, most of our religions are like, you know what, earth and life kind of sucks, but you get your all in heaven. So unsurprisingly we have less of a focus on how to stay healthy and how to stay on the planet for as long as we possibly can, because most of us, even though we do have a desire to survive, there's some theological part of us that's like, you know what, there's probably better the next life. I'll wait for the next life before I really start living, right?
Well, actually, the truth is, this is where you start the preparation for the next life. So if you do bad things here, it's going to be bad there too. So you can't expect doing bad things here and then having good things happening there.
That's a classic Taoist perspective, yeah. Who knows what's true in the next life, but all we know is we've got right here, right now, and we want to make it as good as we possibly can.
Right.
And so what they decided is that to make your right here, right now, as good as it possibly can be, and to make your right here, right now on this planet last as long as possible, you want to cultivate the three treasures. And that's why they're referred to as treasures, because they're the most valuable thing that you can possibly have, you know. Any other treasure, I would say, is less valuable than energy. Not only gold and money and cars and houses and stuff like that, but even more abstract things like love, you know, or peace or whatever.
Friendship.
If you don't have friendship, if you don't have energy, you cannot enjoy and appreciate any of those things, unfortunately. So energy is the most valuable thing in the world, to me, right? And it was the ancient Taoists. This is the ancient Taoist perspective I'm sharing with you right now. And as you said, Taoists are also very much focused on the here and now. They're very much into presence, right? What's going on now, not what's going on in your head, not what might have happened in the past, not what happened in the might happen in the future. What's going on right here, right now? That's their focus. And the last thing I'll say about Taoists is that they were empiricists. Anyone familiar with that word? Okay. That's where empirical weight comes from, if you're familiar with that term. Empiricist means that they were kind of like the first scientists. Whereas most people in the world would create fancy philosophies as to the way life is, and then try and get life to conform to those ideas, and get annoyed when life doesn't conform to those ideas, Taoists were actually focused on how does life actually work? How does nature actually work? They were testing things, rather than taking fancy ideas and trying to make the world fit into them, which is basically what most science still is right now, unfortunately. They were actually observing the universe and observing the results of everything. Because of that, they also took detailed notes. And that is why, even though they weren't that concerned with the past or the future, we have a tradition of herbalism and, in fact, medicine in China going back much longer than anywhere else in the world. Partly because there's been less kind of wars and things being destroyed, but also just because, you know, they love to take notes of everything. So they were kind of the first scientists as well. They were interested in the way things are, not in the way we think they should be. Right? So, is that enough about Taoist? I think so. So, with that perspective, we want to look at the three treasures. What are they? How am I doing with each of them? And how do I cultivate? Right? So, the first treasure is qi. Back to the lap loop. Qi relates to what NLP practitioners in the house. Okay, yeah, okay. One familiar with laughter.
Tai Chi? Is that connected to it?
Tai Chi is the cultivation of energy. In fact, sorry, Tai Chi is the movement of energy, I believe. It's a literal translation. Qi Kung is the cultivation of energy. So Qi, the most easy Western equivalent for any scientists in the audience is ATP, adenosine triphosphate. So literal cellular energy. Okay. Another Western equivalent, which is sometimes compared to, is biophotons. because qi is also light energy, white light energy. If you have a little bit of sensitivity and you see someone who's got very high amounts of qi, you can almost see a kind of radiance coming off them. Have you ever met that kind of person who's almost radiant, like they're full of light? Yeah, got some shaking heads, some nodding heads. So not everyone can see that kind of thing, but for some people, you know, it's like, wow, okay, that person's really radiating. So if you can see that, that's where a person has a lot of qi. It's kind of radiant energy. Qi also tends to make you feel very light. The more qi you have, the more light you are. The less qi you have, the more heavy you are. Depression, which as the name implies, is kind of like feeling like you're being pressed down, or in fact, where a lot of people who are depressed are like, oh, I just can't get up, it's just too hard, right? So that's the opposite of lightness. You know, lightness is like up, bouncing around, right? So you have qi. Generally, you feel good about life as well, okay? With a lot of qi, you tend to see the world as a light, lovely place full of wonderful people who mean well. If you have a deficient amount of qi, then you tend to see the world as a dark, evil place where everyone, even if they're being nice, is probably being manipulative.
So would you then like levity and gravity, you know, like the uplifting levity and gravity, the down dark and levity the light up?
Yeah.
The two forces, yeah. Okay.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's not to say that people should be living in the sky, by the way. You know, we want to be grounded, and we'll talk about that with the next energy. So we want to be light and grounded, rather than like weighed down grounded, which is unfortunately what a lot of people think that grounded means. So qi relates to two organ systems. Still with me? Mm-hmm. Okay. We've got the lungs, and we've got the spleen. So we could also say it's the respiratory system and the digestive system. Now the way that I translate qi is that it's your everyday energy. So basically it relates to the energy you need to get through the day, as opposed to the other two, which we'll do in a minute. So our everyday energy, as I hope you know, comes from what you digest and what you breathe. Now which of those two would actually be the most primary, do you think? So put your hands up if you've seen my stuff before.
Breathing.
Breathing, absolutely. The quality of air that you breathe and the way that you breathe has a lot more to do with your health than anything you consume, in my opinion. And my experience, and in fact in the opinion of 5,000 years of Taoism, you know, it's more important, it's more primary. It's harder to, you're much less likely to hear it because you can't sell breath.
Right.
I can't sell you oxygen. I can't tell you what you really need is oxygen, and I've got some back here that I need to, you know, 2 for the price of 1 today or whatever. So, you know, not many people say to you, hey, really the biggest thing you need for your health and energy right now is to breathe better. But it's true. Okay? So we need to learn to breathe well if we want to have high amounts of energy in general and qi in particular. So what does breathing well mean? It means breathing from the nose and not the mouth, right? It's a really crucial distinction. It means breathing from the belly, so that when you breathe in, you go like this. Rather than from the chest, like most people do, so they breathe in like this. Right? That's not good breathing. That's incredibly inefficient breathing. And yet it's how most of us breathe, because of the amount of tension, usually very chronic tension, that we've had, usually from a very young age, since childhood. Okay? But all babies breathe this way.
Babies breathe.
Yeah.
And they're born, they breathe.
Absolutely. Everyone starts off breathing this way, and it's only as we get more and more stress and tension in our lives that we start to breathe in an unnatural way. We get way less oxygen coming in, way less fresh air coming in. And remember, from the Taoist point of view, in the air we don't just have oxygen and nitrogen and stuff like that. We actually have qi, literal energy. We can't really measure it yet, but it's out there. And the more fresh and the more high energy environment, like say near the sea or near a waterfall, the more of that qi that you can just breathe in, and it's incredibly transformative to your energy levels. Okay?
Yeah, I was gonna say about like going into a big city like London. When you're in there, after a while, you really notice like how the qi is down. There's not much qi energy in there. When you come out, that's why you really need to escape to the countryside to reconnect with that breath and that purity of the the qi energy. You know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's absolutely huge. It's a huge distinction that not nearly enough people focus on. Even if you do, you know, live in London, or even if you do have to be indoors all day for your job or something like that. You need to make an effort to get as much fresh air as possible, and you need to do whatever it takes to learn how to breathe naturally again. If you want to be healthy, in my opinion. There's no other way around it. There's no, oh, but if I eat well, but if I take this supplement, or da-da-da-da. No, you've got to learn to breathe well. It's an essential part of health. Various people can show you that, you know. You can learn that in a yoga studio or Pilates studio or Qigong or any kind of martial arts or Tai Chi, or if you do singing lessons or a lot of time acting lessons or any kind of blowy musical instrument lessons, you know, they'll all teach you how to breathe properly. And it's a huge distinction. So, is this something, have I hammered this point home enough? Is everyone going to learn how to breathe better? Put your hands up if you're willing to learn how to breathe better. Come on.
The minute you mentioned it, I started getting
Excellent.
Actually, I was going to elaborate on that point, like the babies do the natural breathing from the abdomen, from we're doing it actually at night when we go to sleep and we're out of the body automatically goes back into that kind of a breath. The breath changes when we're sleeping, and then when we come back into the body, then we're going back into the upper, what you demonstrated breathing.
Not always, that's where people get sleep problems.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, healthy people.
Yes, healthy people, thank you.
Yeah,
yes.
Definitely.
I remember years ago doing a breathing workshop with somebody, and it was an ex-mayor of our city, and I was saying to him, just put your hands here and breathe from here. But I can't do that. I've always been told to let my stomach in. She couldn't actually do it physically. She couldn't do it.
There's a big issue for women especially, and but I think men usually are vain enough as well, that they want to hold their stomach in and worry about how it looks. But
she physically couldn't do it. It took me about an hour to get her to just let it go.
That's awesome. So you teach breathing?
Not now, no. That was just like...
I was about to say,
no,
this is
no,
like you can learn from.
that's a one-off thing, and I just forget all about it. And it's good to be reminded.
Eventually it becomes a way of life. You know, and if you observe me, even when I'm not thinking about it, you'll see that that's where I'm breathing from. That's become natural and normal to me now. And that's probably the biggest difference that I made to my health, was doing that practice. It's not the only thing, you know, if only were one simple magic bullet, and like I said, it's not, but it's the biggest thing, okay? So that's the chi, and then the other side, of course, is digestion. So there's what you digest, right? Now, in that area, we need to look at, obviously, what we are taking into our bodies. And I think probably most of you here, if you do potlucks, you're already familiar, you know. Most food out there is toxic, you know, eat more greens, don't eat cooked fats, all the rest of it, yeah. The basics, right? But there is also the way that you eat. And I think that's the thing that probably, again, not enough people ideally focus on. Because even if you eat the healthiest thing in the world, if you kind of wolf it down in a cortisol-induced frenzy, like most people kind of do, you may as well, you might actually be better off eating a steak and kidney pies and chips very, very slowly and properly. You know, it's like, it is that big a factor. You also need to eat well, okay? Because the issue is, what do I digest? And if you're not chewing, the answer to that is not much, not a lot. I was interviewing a Robert Young recently, who some of you may have heard of. He's an alkaline guy, and he talks about how he routinely heals people just by giving them nothing but blended food for like a month or two. Lots and lots and lots of green blended food, and that's just cure-all. And he's like, and the human body is not meant to digest, food. He said the inside, all these things that we think are the digestive organs, they don't actually digest much, right? I said, so everyone has to eat blended food, right? I was skeptical. So what did we do before the invention of blenders, like 30 years ago? Thinking I'd got him, right? And he goes, we used to chew.
That's right. Masticate.
I was like, okay, yeah, I'll buy that. Good point, you know. Most of us, we rush so much when we eat. Most of us eat food which is bad for us because we like the taste so much. And then we rush that food and don't enjoy the taste anyway. It's just crazy.
Whilst watching TV.
Yeah.
Well,
you eat so much of it that you feel sick after as well.
They're saying that you can just count your mastication. You should chew at least 30 times or 40 times before you swallow. Because, right, because ultimately all food has to be made liquid again, because in order to be absorbed, if it's not in a liquid form, you can't really absorb it.
Absolutely.
And 50% happens right here with the saliva, the mixing saliva in the food. Yeah.
The enzyme thing is controversial. Again, the Robbie Young perspective is no, enzymes are completely irrelevant. I'm not saying he's right, but I'm just saying that's not completely certain. But what everyone does seem to agree on is chew more.
Right.
That's a definite.
Saliva, 50% of the digestion actually happens in the mouth.
Yeah, Robbie Young would say 100%.
100?
100.
Okay.
All the digestive organs, they don't actually digest, they just process.
Right.
But they don't really break it down. That's not what they're there for.
Is it more for starches though, chewing in your mouth?
This is the conventional wisdom. I'm not 100% sure I agree with it anymore. But we don't need to go into that. What we can all agree on is that we chew our food better, right? Now, in order to do that, we need to relax.
Right.
How do we relax? Well, we'll look more at relaxing when we do the next type of energy. But also, one of the ways that we can relax is to breathe.
Breathe.
Exactly.
Right.
So I highly recommend that everyone make a practice, in general, and I do this too, of just breathing before you eat. Just stop. I mean, ideally do, 5-10 minutes of breathing practice, but even if it's just stopping for, if you're around the family dinner table and you're worried what everyone will think if you start like full on going for it, then just at least just take a couple of deep, slow breaths into the belly in a non-noticeable way, and just calm and center yourself. And because what that does is it turns off the sympathetic nervous system, which is your fight or flight response, your cortisol, and it turns on your parasympathetic nervous system, which is your rest and digest response.
That's where saying grace came from.
That's what I was just
Yes.
saying. I think that's why before the dinner table they were speaking the
Absolutely.
Everybody hold
Right,
hands and
and-
calm down.
And you remind yourself of what you're grateful on,
yeah.
because that calms
Yeah.
it down and
Right.
relaxes you. Yeah, absolutely.
And then you appreciate the food because you bless it. It's true, it's all connected.
Absolutely. So, a very simple rule to have is I never eat because I am in any way upset or out of balance.
Right.
If I'm upset or out of balance, I breathe. Then I eat, because I'm still hungry, right? Do not, most people when they eat, it is basically to relieve an emotion. And you know what? Funnily enough, for men, often it isn't even to relieve a negative emotion. I've got a client who massively overeats, and he tends to do it when he's too excited, full of passion, full of joy. He does it to kind of stifle himself because he feels too wired, So any emotion, right? So the way to balance any emotion is not to eat, it's to breathe. And if you eat while you're in a peak emotional state, even if it's joy, you're not digesting the food properly. Now, when you're not digesting food properly, endless problems, endless. There's a lot of people in the health world who say, all health problems are rooted in the bowel, or in the intestines. In fact, Robert Young is another one of them. There's a lot of credibility to that. There's a lot of truth to that. I actually say that most problems start in the lungs, because if you're not breathing properly, then you don't have enough energy. If you don't have enough energy, then you get stressed. If you get stressed, then you tend to overeat. If you overeat, then you become toxic, and on and on and on. You get toxic, then you tend to attract negative organisms. Once you get negative organisms in you, then you're kind of stuck, because even when you do try and be healthy, they'll try and drag you back again. So it all starts with not breathing very well. And it can't all necessarily be cured by breathing properly, but it's a great start, right? And digesting food properly is another one. So just make it a rule. I don't eat when I'm upset. Okay, everyone happy to agree to that one? I don't eat when I'm upset. Come on, a commitment. Excellent. Okay.
And another thing I learned, because I was working a lot in the markets, to not eat standing, to sit down and really connect with the food, and not eating while you're standing. That's because then you never come to that satiation point.
It's a good point. In fact, just to stand up requires adrenal energy.
Yeah.
So just standing up requires the sympathetic nervous system. So yeah, absolutely. Sit down as well. And posture, don't be eating like this.
Right.
You don't want to just
Sit
digest
straight.
it very well. Straighten up. Most people have heartburn issues. That's actually what it is. I mean, it's partly how acidic their food is, but it's also just this squashing thing. You can resolve heartburn usually with about 4 inches. That's that. That's all it takes. Okay. So basically, chi. What we digest and what we breathe, right? That's where our basic everyday energy comes in, right? But the question is, what if that's not enough? Is there some kind of mechanism designed in human beings that if, for whatever reason, they weren't able to get food immediately, that they would have some kind of reserves of energy that they could tap into? Is there some kind of mechanism where if they couldn't get enough oxygen in the moment because they have to run really quickly away from a saber-toothed tiger, there would be some kind of reserve of energy inside them? Do you think that would be possible?
Of course.
Absolutely. Okay. So the Taoists were very focused on this, and they called it Jing. Jing. J-I-N-G.
That's Jing. Okay.
And I call it reserve energy.
Okay.
But I also call it adaptive energy. So reserve energy or adaptive energy. I call it reserve energy for the reason I just said. It's your reserves. It's your emergency reserves that you tap into if you haven't got enough everyday energy. But I also call it adaptive energy because the higher your levels of this energy, the more you're able to adapt to whatever life throws at you. Because if you look at Darwin, right, evolutionary science, the key to whether an organism survives or not, whether you survive or not, is not how strong you are or how clever you are or even how pretty you are. It's how adaptive you are. That's the key thing. So the more adaptive you can be to your environment. So as much as we may hate, toxicity, nuclear power plants, blah, blah, blah. The reality is they're here. And so the better that we can adapt to them, the more chance there is that we will survive and our children and generations to come will survive. So that's like the good point of having high reserve energy. Actually, there's many good points, right? So the Western correlation of this, things that you may have heard of, generally if someone is high in G, then they will be alkaline. They will be highly mineralized. Goes back to what you were saying earlier. They will be hydrated, even at a cellular level. And they will tend to have high levels of essential fats in the right place. Okay? So those are the ways that we can normally tell. Those are the ways that we can see that a person has high gene.
Could you go over this again, please?
Yep. So they are alkaline.
Yep.
Does everyone know how to test their alkalinity or acidity?
No.
By the way? Okay, excellent. All you need to do for that, do we want to know a little bit about alkalinity? Or have you just heard about that recently?
Yeah, it's a scale, right? The purple to the red and the green is, again, the green is in the middle, right? It's like where the neutral is.
pH test strip? Excellent. Thank you.
I take it shopping.
Perfect. Oh, okay. Not a pH test strip.
No, not the test strip.
Oh no, not test strip, no, but it's a chart.
A guide, yeah. Excellent, excellent. So you want to find out what your alkalinity is. This is an easy way to measure your gene, and I'll tell you some stuff as well. So a pH test strip is something that you used to be able to get in chemists. I think now you have to get it online, generally. And basically all you do is you just urinate on it first thing in the morning. First thing in the morning is by far the most reliable time. And then look at the results. Okay? If it's anything less, if the number is anywhere less than 7, then you're acidic.
Right.
And you have work to do in that area. If it's between about 7 and 7.5, usually, not always, usually that means you're good. And if it's really high, like as high as 8.5, 9, that's often a sign that you're very acidic and that your body is...
No, 8 and 9 is alkaline, right?
That's normally a sign that you are very acidic and that your body is buffering that acidity by releasing alkaline minerals from storage, which then comes out in the urine.
So it's reverse? You read it reverse?
No.
No? No? I'm saying if your reading is very alkaline... Okay, I'll give you an example of how I learned this. So I had a client once who had pancreatic cancer, stage 4. So pretty much everyone would say there's no chance, right? And he's my only client who died. And I warned him at the outset, you know, there's a good chance this isn't going to work, right? I'm going to try, but you know, realise I'm not a medical doctor and I can't guarantee anything. And he would check his pH in the morning, and it was about 7.5.
Okay.
And I asked Robert Youngis, how is this even possible, right? And he explained that what happens is the pancreas, one of the jobs of the pancreas is to create sodium bicarbonate, which is your body's main alkalizing raw material. And if it shuts down, your body starts robbing alkaline minerals from the teeth, from the bones, from the tissues, in order to buffer that extremely high acidity in the blood. And then you'll be peeing that out via the urine. Ammonia, that's another thing they use. So I'm just warning you, it's possible to have a false positive. If you have severe health issues and you check your pH and, oh, it's 7, that's nice. It's like, no, it's probably not accurate. If you feel good, and you're happy, and you have energy, and you don't have any pain in your body and all the rest, and you get a 7, great, then you're where you need to be, right? If you feel okay, and you get a 6 or a 5.5, then okay, then you need to work on getting yourself more alkaline. But don't assume that that reading is always positive. That's just what I wanted to share with you. Just because you get an alkaline doesn't always mean you are. Listen to your body more. If you're in pain, or if you're fatigued, or if you're suffering from severe infections or something, then you know, go with the reality rather than the reading. But it's a good idea to test that. Okay? It's a good idea for everyone to test that regularly, in my opinion. Especially if you're feeling out of sorts. Okay? Because a lot of the time, the way we feel, we just take it for granted. It just feels normal. In fact, one of the theories I heard is that the reason that it's usually women who are interested in health is because you have menstrual cycles. And what that means is that you feel different throughout the month. So you know that your worst day is a lot worse than your best day. Whereas guys just feel the same all the time. So they can have severe problems.
There's a male period.
There's a moment, right.
Male what?
Men have periods as well.
No.
Mental ones.
Not
But
only
they-
that.
There's
What?
a time of the month, each month.
But that
when else is
excludes
sleeping.
women, you know, postmenopausal women.
But even women who's postmenopausal, they have been through that fluctuation,
Yes.
so they know what it's
Yeah.
like to feel differently. What I'm saying is men are usually more oblivious to their health because they have less of a variation. That's all. Does anyone disagree with me about that?
Well, most men's variation is like waking up after a booze night or they're drinking a lot and then feeling miserable in the morning. That's where their variation comes in. And they're
Yeah.
trying to
Women
get
have that
back
too.
up.
But they know that they've created that usually.
Yeah, of
right?
course,
For
but
women,
they think
you can
that's
do your
normal.
best and you still feel a lot worse at some points than others. And that tells you I could be a lot better. Okay, so that's all I'm saying. It's easier for you to be aware that you could be better, usually, not always. Some men are very sensitive, some women aren't. Just a generalisation. So, check your alkalinity, that's one way to measure. Mineralisation. Mineralisation is huge as well. Okay, so mineralisation, in fact, in my experience now, is the best way to test. It's just a little bit more expensive. So we start with the alkaline things. It's like a 10-penny test. You know, everyone can afford to do that. Most people are chronically deficient in minerals, and minerals are actually the most important physical building blocks of health. Right. So we've covered oxygen already, but in terms of the physical, actual stuff, right? It's more important than protein. It's more important than carbohydrates. More important than fat. Not that those things aren't important, but minerals are the most important thing of all. You can last for a long time without calories, technically, months. Not that you'd want to, but you can. You can't last for even a few hours if your electrolytes have got very low, for instance. You'll die, right? So electrolytes are minerals. So these are really important, right? It's really important to be on top of electrolytes in general and on top of all your minerals. And a way to test that is through a hair mineral analysis. They're available online at Hot Herbs. You cut some hair off, send it off. About a month later, you get a nice little chart telling you, oh, this is what you got, this is what you haven't got, this is what you need to work on. And the nice thing about that, first of all, is it tells you roughly where you're at. And second of all, it stops you wasting money on supplements that you have no idea if they're any good for you or if you even need them. You can work out what you need. And of course, you don't necessarily have to supplement. If you see that you have a very low I don't know, iron, you can just have a lot more iron-rich foods. So, really important to be aware of minerals. Hydration. Most people are chronically dehydrated. Now, I've actually learned a lot about this since I first started speaking about this, again, through working with real people, which is always helpful, and I don't feel like enough experts work with enough real people. And when I was trying to help people, I was like, you are obviously dehydrated. You've got all the signs of being dehydrated. Please drink some more water. I'll speak to them next week or month, whatever. I'm like, do you drink more water? No.
It's really hard.
It's really hard.
I've just started to be able to drink 2 litres a day, and I've tried for years, on and off, but I've really tried for years and really struggled with it. Now I can do it. But
Well, congratulations for having got there.
yeah, I know, but it's taken me, I don't know, 20, 30 years to get there, you know, it's not easy.
Well, what I've discovered is that there's a very good reason for it, and it's mineral deficiency, especially your electrolytes. It's really important for your body to have the right amount of sodium, potassium, calcium, chloride, magnesium in your blood, especially sodium. And if your sodium is low, as it tends to be, especially if people who are vegetarian and people who are trying to be healthy because they think salt's bad for them, then you have a great chance of being low in sodium. And the other thing that burns up sodium is stress. Stress uses up sodium very quickly. So the combination of stress, and in fact that's why when you have a severe trauma and you get rushed to the hospital, what's the first thing they give you? Sodium and water, right? Those are the most fundamental, other than oxygen, life-giving things that you need, right? So, make sure you have enough sodium. You know, if you are not thirsty, if you find it hard to drink enough water, get onto sodium. Get on the right kind of sodium, obviously. So, yes, the natural form, right? Samphire. You've been having samphire recently?
No.
You're not familiar with that? No, okay.
No.
Awesome. Grows along coastal areas. Incredibly salty, natural plant. Very nice, in my opinion.
Slightly
What about seaweeds?
Seaweeds, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. You know, celery. But what I'll say is that most people who think that they are going to get enough just from foods are mistaken.
Right.
Not everyone, but most of the time, because of the amount of stress that we have in our modern life. If you lived a meditative life like a monk and you didn't have any pressures, then yes, you could definitely get by with seaweeds and celery and all the rest of it. But if you're living a life of purpose and all the rest of it, you need to add some salt, okay? So, two potential types of salt. One is Celtic sea salt or Himalayan salt, right? Nice, raw salt. That's the distinction, by the way. Does anyone want to hear the difference between good salt and bad salt? Or are you all already familiar with that? Yeah? A couple of people? You're familiar with that one?
No, just.
Yeah,
bring it
everyone's
up.
familiar
It's
with that.
important. Yeah.
Okay, well, very briefly, when you heat a salt, it's toxic.
Right.
When it's raw, it's not.
Okay.
When it's raw, it's life-giving, it's essential for your body to function. When it's cooked, it's a toxin.
Right.
Okay? Very simple. So that's one form, and that's called sodium chloride, right? Most people who have stress and who have health issues, I'd say, need at least a teaspoon a day of that. I've had clients with chronic fatigue where nothing has seemed to help them, and then I get them to have like 3, 4, 5 teaspoons of salt a day, and suddenly it's like a miracle. They're up again, they're working. Everything else didn't work. That's the thing that made a difference. I'm not saying it will in every case, but it's a huge distinction.
I recall like where somebody put some stuff in the water and he added salt, and all of the electricity was flowing because salt was like a conductor of energy.
Exactly.
Right.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
We haven't got to that yet, but absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if you have distilled water, that putting sea salt in, you've got
Yeah, what about
so
distilled
it
water?
just brings everything back in.
I don't like distilled water. I've measured it before, and the pH of it is about 5. Which is
You're not in
If you
favor of
put- if
distilled.
you
Yeah,
put
I have a
salt-
weird thing
if
with
you
it
put
too.
Sea salt in.
it's a little bit better. I would suggest
I mean, if you
you
have to
can't.
have that, I mean, we're not talking about having it as
It's
general,
better than
but-
tap water.
Yeah,
There is that. I would say that filtered water though is better than distilled water,
yeah.
and any form of spring water is better than filtered water.
Right.
So it's a gradient. But yeah, it's better than tap water.
Yeah,
But what isn't? You know,
yeah. Yeah.
depends where you are actually. I've had a
Rose
couple of people
water
pull me
is
up on
really
that.
good.
Yeah.
You know, some people's taps actually have spring water coming out. God, you know, I did 10 years ago. It does happen. Chelsea taps have spring water coming out. Every time I go out there, I bring some bottles and fill them up. So you never know. But yeah, so I'll do water in a second, just back to the minerals. So we've got one form of salt, sodium chloride, right? That's the normal salt. And then also sodium bicarbonate. That's another form. And if you are acidic, it often really benefits, and you remember, you know how to test that, right? For your urine test strips. If you are acidic, then sodium bicarbonate is a really powerful medicine, you know. Some people have been cured of cancer using it. Dr. Simoncelli, for instance, in Italy is doing that. I had a client who went to see him, had a tumour sorted by blasting it with sodium bicarbonate. Some people have been cured of kidney disease with it. Some people have been cured of diabetes with it. You know, it's an incredible thing because it is such a powerful, powerful alkalizer. Now, it's not necessarily useful or appropriate for everyone. Green juices and cutting out acidic foods are enough for a lot of people. But if you have sodium issues and if you have energy issues, sodium issues, sorry, by that I mean that you find it hard to drink water, right? Then sodium bicarbonate can be another good go-to thing. And if you have it, I suggest don't have it with food. Most people who do use sodium bicarbonate, they use it as a way of quelling indigestion. I suggest have it before the food so you don't get indigestion in the first place, rather than pouring it on top of a line of half-digested food once it's erupted. Makes sense, right?
So how much would you use?
I would have between I'd say 1 teaspoon a day first thing in the morning is relevant and helpful for most people who are struggling with health, up to even 3 teaspoons or 4 teaspoons a day, again always before meals, if you have real serious acidity issues. Or if you,
And with a large glass of water? Or?
with a large glass of water, I would highly recommend do not add it to all your water, okay? You want some of your water to just be water and some of it to be alkalizing, rather than all of it being alkalizing. I know people who've done all alkaline water for a long time, creates serious issues in the body as well. Okay, so have, as you say, a glass of alkaline water and then just drink normal water again.
Your profile really fits me in that I've had chronic fatigue for 12 and a half years now, and I've always, ever since I was a child, I've never liked salty food, so I do tend to undersalt my food, and as I've just said, I've only just now got to the stage where I can actually get through 2 litres of water on I think like a regular basis.
Is your blood pressure also low?
Low blood pressure.
How did I guess? It's
Yeah.
always the case.
Not problematically low, but
No.
it is low for definitely.
There's a possibility you'll feel faint when you stand up quickly and stuff like that, or not really?
Very occasionally.
Okay,
It's
so it's
just
not
on
that
the
bad.
low side. It's not seriously low, no.
So this is a classic pattern that you're just describing here. Low salt, low blood pressure, problems drinking water, chronic fatigue, salt.
Am I better with like mould and sea salt and that kind of thing? Is that okay? Because that is
Malty
naturally
salt is still
produced.
toxic salt.
Is
Still,
it?
still heated.
I didn't think they were, because they, according to their literature, I thought they just do it with the sun. I
Okay.
don't think they do
As
extra.
far as I know it is. I'm happy to be wrong about that.
I'll check
But
it
as far
out.
as I know, all real sea salt is damp. Okay? A little bit damp. Because it
Okay,
naturally attracts
it's not
moisture.
damp.
And as soon as you heat it, then it doesn't attract moisture anymore.
I'll
That's why they
double
heat
check
it, so
then.
it's easy
So
for
I
the
need to
dog.
get some Himalayan or Celtic sea salt.
Ideally, yeah. It's not even more expensive than Malden, I don't think.
No.
But it's guaranteed to be better. It's certainly more highly mineralised, especially Atlantic salt is great because it's got all sorts of other minerals in there which are good for you.
I did get some of that. I've got some of that.
Great.
Yeah,
What
cool.
about Alea? The Hawaiian salt.
Is that the red or the black?
It's the red one.
The red one. Yeah, also good.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything that's
Does
not
that
heated.
taste nice?
Yeah, great.
Actually, I did Alea and that Celtic sea salt one in the clear packet with the, that's great.
Yeah, perfect.
It was beautiful salt.
Mm.
Really, really like, you could literally just
Different colour green.
eat it.
Yeah, and do so if you feel like it.
Yeah.
There's 3 cautions with salt. If you have high blood pressure or your blood pressure starts to get high, reduce it. If you start to get swelling or water retention in your body, reduce it. Okay? And if you start to get excessively thirsty, I know you probably can't imagine this, but like, no matter how much water you drink, it's never enough, then reduce it. Okay? But those are the 3 warnings. Don't apply to anyone who ever met with chronic fatigue, but just for anyone who doesn't have it, it might be relevant for.
Because I've got all that, the low blood pressure, can't drink water, it just sounds really fun. That may be over
Well, that used to be me. And the way I got out of that one is, there's an old lady told me in Germany, the first thing you do is first thing in the morning, you drink within 20 minutes 1 litre of water, or aim for it. And then when you've got that, if you then still don't feel like drinking, you save for the rest of the day, because whatever you drink after that will make it up to that. And that's what. Well, I didn't use to. It just drink it, drink a large glass straight down without even thinking.
Well, I told people the same advice, but the challenge is some people, like yourselves, just can't do it. And that's where we need to be
I
aware of
couldn't
salt.
do it if I
I
waited.
can now, but like
Yeah.
I said, I couldn't
The
before,
trick
but I
was
do know
literally the
this
first
Make it
thing.
easier.
Yeah.
Before I did anything else was have that, if you think about you get up and do that, that's too late. It is literally the first thing in the morning. And after I started doing that for a week, I could drink.
Good.
That was, and then I got into being able to drink 2 and 3 litres, whereas before I could not do that at all.
I mean, I have a litre and a half of smoothie every morning, but that's not the same, is it?
It's not, no. Let's go to water next, as we're naturally segueing into them.
Yeah.
And then there are other minerals.
Go over the 3.
Yeah, we
Was
didn't.
it high blood pressure?
High blood pressure, excessive thirst, and water retention.
It's interesting because the raw food people, I know that Frederick Patton, where he's like, don't touch salt, because if you see a slug, it gets all shriveled up. And I think, oh, must be a slug in the salt.
You're comparing it to a slug. Everyone is different.
I know.
Everyone is different. Some people don't, like I say, if people have very, very good balance, if they have good mineral reserves, then it's possible they don't need it. Everyone is different. But someone who has energy issues, someone who has problems drinking enough water, they need salt. It's really
Low
obvious.
blood pressure, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I don't take anything else away
Sorry,
today,
don't
which
stop.
I will,
Hmm?
this is really important.
Excellent. Okay.
Can I just the last, because we were going through the 4 things that you had if you're hygiene people, and I've got now alkaline hydrated, highly mineralised, and what was the last one?
Okay. Omega-3s.
It was omega-3s. I thought it might be.
Yeah, that's the other thing to focus on. So for water, yes, I completely agree with you. First thing in the morning, a litre of water. Not as no juice doesn't count, tea doesn't count, smoothie doesn't count. All of these things you can have them, and you can have them in the morning as well, but have the water first. There's a few different reasons for that. One is because obviously that's when you're most dehydrated, because you've been the longest without having anything. Another one is that this is the one I like, especially because it's quite poetic. Throughout the night, you've got to remember your body is detoxifying and cleansing. And then in the morning, what happens is your digestive tract is coated with waste, right? And you might see a bit of coating on your tongue. That's why your breath maybe doesn't smell ideal. That's why you feel the need for a bowel movement, usually. I hope you do. Ideally you do. So, if you pour food on top of that, or even juice, anything that's nutritional, your body will then go into digesting mode, and it will start digesting that waste. So, unless you want to digest your own waste,
Flush it out with
drink
some
water first. Drink a decent amount of water first. And yeah, as quickly as you can, really. I agree with that.
And also,
Definitely.
I nearly always get up about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning for them.
Okay, so
I just don't drink.
that's generally one of the signs of low gene as well. In fact, that's usually a sign of magnesium deficiency, particularly.
I have so much.
Okay, let's look at magnesium before we go to water then, because it's the other electrolyte which is really important. Most people are chronically depleted in magnesium. About 90% of people in the US, I haven't got a figure for the UK, but I imagine it's not, you know, maybe it's 80%. They're a bit more stressy over there than here, not that much. So one of the main things that depletes magnesium is stress and tension. Okay, what do you need magnesium for? You need it for everything. But I think like the take-home thing, if you know, the thing you might actually remember is you need it for energy and you need it to relax. You need it for energy, you need it to relax. So how does that relate to getting up at night to wee? Because it means your bladder is tense. If you're weeing, unless, you know, the average bladder can hold about 3/4 of a litre to a litre of liquid. So if you're going to the toilet and you're going much less than that, then it's because your bladder is too tense, rather than because you actually need to go. Now, that could be emotional reasons for that. Fear will tend to tense up the bladder, you know, it's a classic thing about fear, or you know, stage fright or whatever, and you need to keep peeing, whatever it might be, right? It could be even just fear of sleeping alone, I don't know, if that's, you know, something like that. So, relaxing, it's not just for your physical skeletal muscles, although that's important, but it's also for your internal organs. You know, when your internal organs like your intestines are all tight and tense and knotted up, all kinds of other problems happen. You know, another big issue for health is constipation, right?
It's the biggest, I think.
There you go. Okay, so it's a huge issue. I totally agree. And the challenge with constipation is usually magnesium deficiency.
Right.
And it generally doesn't matter, as well as dehydration, as well as eating poor foods, there's a lot to it, but magnesium deficiency is a really big sticking point, because if you're deficient in magnesium, if you're not deficient in magnesium, let's look at it the other way, even if you didn't eat the most ideal diet, your body would peristalsis and it would work it through and still make you have regular bowel movements. But even if you eat very well, you're chronically magnesium deficient, it just gets stuck because the bowel isn't moving, it's not moving it through, okay? So that's just one example of the challenges you get with magnesium. I mean, there's a lot of magnesium. Your brain needs it, you know? If you've got problems of addictions and obsessive compulsion and blah, 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 whatever it might be, depression, again, magnesium, your brain needs magnesium, right? So the challenge of magnesium is that it's very hard to reverse a deficiency orally. So what that means is no matter how much you eat, or even no matter how much you supplement, generally before your body can get enough magnesium, it will create a laxative effect. Now that's not bad, it's good to clear the bowels out, but it still means you haven't got enough magnesium, right? So no matter how much chocolate you eat, no matter how much magnesium supplements you take internally, it's really easy to be deficient. So, what do we do about that? Yeah, either injection, I'm sure you make another thing.
The spray?
Or the spray. Yeah.
Don't use it.
Don't use it. The spray or the
Lots of
injection.
things that I don't use. Now but the spray.
That's a different conversation than not using things. Especially it's the next energy, so we'll get that in a second. Okay.
Well, chlorophyll, the core of chlorophyll in the molecular structure is magnesium. The human blood cell and the hemin and the chlorophyll are very related. The core difference is the center. In the human blood stream you have iron, the other one has magnesium.
Sure.
So by doing lots of green juices, I mean like intense grass juices, what we've been trying today, you actually stimulates bowel movements too, but natural bowel movements, not like excessive bowel movements, or regularity, whatever you want to call it, you know, because as you said, it's the magnesium that comes through the chlorophyll into the system, and it's readily available in a natural state.
I
So
agree,
the
but
body-
it's not going to reverse deficiency of someone who's got like chronic deficiency of magnesium.
Not overnight, for sure, but after if you constantly drink that green juice, and it will definitely replenish whatever deficiencies are there, don't you think so?
No, not
No.
by studying heminal analysis. I've met someone who's been doing those kind of greens for 20 years.
Really?
And magnesium is still bottomed out. A lot of that's because they had stress issues, right? So that's it
Okay.
as well. But they go hand in hand. It doesn't matter how much magnesium you've got going in. If you are still stressed, you're just going to burn through it. It's like
Okay.
trying to fill up a bucket with a hole in it, you know?
Okay.
And so that's what we're going to look at next when we go to the
Alright.
third energy. It's how to stop your bucket having a hole in it.
So you have to get rid of the
Right.
stress to retain the magnesium.
Yeah, and there are a lot of nutrients, to be honest.
It's not
Sodium.
an easy thing to do, though, is it?
Well, that depends on your definition of stress.
Right.
Okay, so most people see stress as a thing that's out there impinging on them, right? And no, most people see stress as, you know, it's other people, right? It's situations, it's things I
It's
have to do.
traffic, it's whatever.
It's my deadline, it's my timetable,
No,
it's
that's
my
negative
There's
stress.
a whole load of that, but there's
Yeah.
also inside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's how
That's
you
what you're
feel
talking about,
it,
the
isn't it?
inner
It's how you
stress.
deal with it.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean both of them.
Okay.
When you've got both of those going on,
Yeah.
that's when everything starts going really wrong.
Yeah, it's gonna haywire.
Yeah, and one attracts the other, right?
Right.
The more stress you have in here, the more you'll tend to have out there. Yeah, absolutely. So you need to work on reducing that stress. One of the things that's most important and profound for that is
Breathing.
breathing, which is why it's one of the things I started with. Yeah, absolutely. If you breathe well all the time from your belly as a way of life.
I know when I'm really stressed because I do stop breathing, I forget to breathe.
Yeah.
It sounds weird, but
it's very normal.
very shallow little breaths.
So it's a matter of
breathe.
becoming aware of that.
Remember to
Right.
breathe.
I
Bring
remember
yourself back.
when I was still smoking, when I was stressed, outwardly stressed. First
Smoke
thing you
more.
do, you take a cigarette and it's that inhalation.
Deep breath,
And that's
isn't
when
it?
I gave
Smoke.
up smoking. That's the first thing I realised. I don't know how to calm down. And it was that, so I just simulated that one. And that worked. And that actually got me out of wanting to smoke, because it was just breathe, deep breath. Every time you wanted a cigarette, you take a deep breath and it worked.
Yep.
And in my head, I've done it.
It's true. That's why these people step outside to smoke the cigarette, because it's like to kind of like step out of the stress bubble and then go back
is.
in it, and it's
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah.
Yep,
It's
a lot of
true.
it's remembering to breathe.
Yeah.
So that's magnesium, probably enough about that, right? And then lastly, for Jean, we have the whole issue of hydration.
Sorry, magnesium. You mentioned magnesium sprays and stuff, but I've no idea about. Never heard of them. Where do you get them? How do you have them?
Owen
Oh,
Robson on thisStage.com.
I'll see you later then. Thanks.
Happened to have brought some. I didn't bring any salt, but this is just what happens to be knocking around my
Salt
house.
the salt.
Yeah, magnesium oil. It's readily available though, to be honest.
Okay.
Magnesium oil is referred to. Type into Google.
Wherever you are, right.
Oil.
Yeah, it's called magnesium oil. But it's basically just magnesium salt dissolved in water. Don't know why it's called magnesium oil.
With the spray, because I've got some, I think I've used it twice over the last year or so. But where's the best place to do it? Because
Did it sting when you applied it? Most people stop using it because it stings, and if it stings, it's usually a very good sign that you're acidic. So the least acidic area of the body is usually the feet and the lower legs, because the calcium just goes fall downwards, so it makes you a little bit less acidic. So if you spray it on your feet and you spray it on your calves and your shins, that's generally the least stingy place. So the fact it stings should not put you off using it, should encourage you to use it, because it shows that you really need it. It doesn't sting at all.
I remember it stinging. I remember putting it here for some reason, whether somebody had told me to put it there.
Sometimes it says on the instructions,
Yeah.
you want to avoid sensitive areas as well, so nipples and things like that, and do not put it in your head. Your head's the most acidic area of your body, so it will definitely sting. Okay, so that's magnesium. Water. First thing in the morning, we covered that one. And how much you need does depend on the person, but I'd say for most people, anyone kind of the size of, I've got one client who's like 6 stone, so maybe a bit less for her, but anyone kind of the size that we've got here, at least 2 litres a day. Absolute minimum. It depends how active you are, right? 2 to 3. If you are, if your size is greater, usually that means you're drinking less. Actually, you need to drink more to make up for having that extra size, right? The more active you are, the more you need to drink water. As soon as I'm finished here, I'm going to go have about 1 litre to make up for it. Like an hour of exertion, of any kind of physical exertion, should be like a litre of water, right? If you're saunering or doing anything like that, being in a hot environment, that deserves a litre of water for say 15 to 30 minutes in a sauna, something like that. So that 2 litres is a minimum. Those are just examples that apply to my life. But anything else which is going to dehydrate more, stress and trauma, if you have something traumatic happen, drink a load of extra water on top of that 2 litres, right? Keep increasing the water if you have any kind of issue going on, okay? And yet generally when you're least likely to want it is when you're most likely to need it. As to why we are wired that way, I have no idea, but it just seems to be the way that it goes.
I always forget that I've got an app that it just pours water, that's what it does, and it reminds you to drink water.
Excellent, what's that called?
It's just drink more water or something like that.
Drink more water, awesome. Oh, that's a good
You
thing.
can also record how much you've had, and it'll give you a little graph to show you if you're over your average or whatever.
Excellent,
See,
gotta
I
love
have a
iPhones.
colleague who goes upstairs
This
and
is
makes
not
a
so easy to
She goes upstairs, makes a cup of tea, and comes down with a glass of water for me. And at the end of the day, she says, "You haven't drunk that."
Well, I
Or
use
get that
the bubble, the water, the bubble water, and I have the litre bottle, and I know how that's going down. When I'm exercising, I fill that up purposely before it. The last thing I do in the gym is fill that up again. So when I then go on, and that's how I know I've got my first litre there, I've got my second litre there, and then the rest during the day.
Great, that's it.
Always know. I'm so I can measure when I'm drunk, you know, and I make sure I don't drink after 8 o'clock, because otherwise I get up in the middle of the night.
All that stuff is awesome, and you know, to get into the habit of it, and that's what you really want to be.
It's creating that habit.
You want to be in the habit. What's it called?
Water your body.
Water your body. Excellent. Okay,
Love
we'll
that.
include that. So, the one other reason why you might have problems with water, in terms of being hydrated, is omega-3s. So, your body uses up omega-3s to get acids out of you, just like it does use minerals like calcium and magnesium. So, if you have had a history of stress or trauma or anything like that, or if you, and that, you know, trauma is broad-ranging. It could be an infection, or it could be being in a war, or it could be someone, you know, hurting you or whatever. It's all kinds of things. So if you've had anything like that, that's going to deplete you of omega-3s. So you need to make sure that you restore them. And the way I look at omega-3s is that there's two types that you need to be aware of as a way of life. There's kind of what I call bulk omega-3s, and this is really to give your body the raw material to get acids out of your body. And this would be things like flaxseed oil, hemp seed oil, pumpkin seeds, all that kind of thing. I say oil because oil is easier to digest than nuts and seeds in terms of just getting those omegas into you. However, of course, you can actually use the whole thing as well. And there is, what's the word? I like to call it cellular omega-3s. So that's the long chain omega-3s. Those are the ones that are ready to be used straight away. Generally, we only get those in animal products, but there are exceptions. You can get it from marine phytoplankton. You can get it from various types of algae oils. So they're called EPA and DHA. And most people, in my experience, who have health challenges need to get them. Just having flaxseed or flaxseed oil or vegetable oils isn't enough. You also need to get long chain omega-3s. They're especially important if you suffer from memory issues, brain fog, lack of clarity, as well as issues of memory or anything like that.
So that's from marine phytoplankton, did you say?
Yeah, marine phytoplankton is my favourite source, vegan-wise, and algae oils is the other option.
Seaweeds.
Seaweeds don't really have usable amounts of EPA and DHA, as far as I'm aware. They have loads and loads of other cool things.
How about chlorella?
Again, not really EPA and DHA, no.
Okay. Spirulina?
They have
No.
GLA.
Hmm?
They have GLA, which is the long chain omega-6,
Okay.
but they don't have EPA and DHA.
What have coconuts? Do they have, because that's a medium chain, right?
Yeah, so first of all, evening primrosol is GLA, so that's omega-6, it's long chain omega-6, which is also important.
But it's not going to give you, it won't do what the marine phytoplankton or other things like that do.
Yeah, it won't give you the brain food and the cell food that long chain omega-3s do. Coconut oil, medium chain triglycerides. I love coconut oil. I use it every day as a source of fuel. The reason is because it's the only fat in the world that's known that doesn't require liver involvement. So most people's livers, again, are a little bit overburdened, like kind of blocked up with stuff. They're not producing enough bile to digest their foods, especially their fat. So if you have coconut oil as a fuel source, it doesn't require any fat production. Sorry, it doesn't require any bile production. So it's easy for your liver and gives the liver a chance to recover. So love coconut oil personally, but it's not relevant to the conversation here. It's just a really awesome source of fuel.
Yeah, but so people who had like their thing taken out, what's it called here?
Gallbladder?
The gallbladder, isn't that the stuff what produces the bile?
Yes, it's,
So-
well, technically it's the stuff that spits out the bile.
So then
but yeah.
that would be helpful for them for
Coconut oil would
energy
be very
for food,
helpful,
right?
yeah,
Okay.
definitely. And usually for that, in that position, I'd also say some kind of bile supplement,
What's that coconut oil?
like ox bile.
I just told her that this morning.
Yeah, good.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So yeah, coconut oil, ox bile.
So what is a long chain then? You have the medium chain, the short chain, and the long chain. What are the long chain ones?
Yeah. Of what?
Of fats, of omegas.
EPA, DHA are long chain omega-3s.
Okay.
GLA is long chain omega-6.
And those are the ones that are in the phytoplankton and probably in the wild blue-green algae. Are they in there too? The alpha
GLA is
algae?
in the blue-green algae. I don't think, no, EPA and DHA aren't in there again. Krill oil is my favourite source of EPA and DHA, yeah. Really high amounts of very easily usable, but it isn't technically vegan. But I use it anyway. I've been lifelong vegetarian, but I'm also a pragmatarian, so I go for wherever I can get the very best thing.
What was the
Right.
other one you said after coconut oil? The gallbladder?
Oh, ox bile supplement.
Ox bile.
Ox bile supplement.
Never heard that before.
Right.
It's not ideal, but if someone doesn't have a gallbladder, they need bile,
Yeah.
Right.
so you can
Yeah.
supplement it.
Right.
It's not
Okay, not
So ox bile oil, where would you get that from?
www.lionheartherbs.com.
There you go.
tripped off the tongue quite important.
Actually, it's my third biggest ranking video on YouTube ever is ox bile. Like, that's how I'm going to be known in 100 years' time.
Oh,
It's great, isn't it?
Do you sell krill oil?
I do sell krill oil, yes. Yeah.
Because a while back you didn't have it. We were looking on the website.
I've had it as long as I've had anything other than herbs for a good year and a
It
half.
wasn't on your website. when we were
It would have
looking.
been. You may have had a problem with finding it because of whatever. But yeah, it's on there. Yes.
And that's krill oil, that's the long chain.
Yeah, krill oil is very good quality, long chain, EPA and DHA.
Can you just go over the long chains again? It was marine phytoplankton, animal foods, krill oil.
So, well, where to get long chain omega-3s?
Yeah.
So, oily fish in general.
So that'd be like salmon and
Pilchards and sardines and all that kind of thing. Yeah, trout. Long chain omega-3s and yeah, marine phytoplankton, algae oils that are specifically dedicated to that. So not just, you know, standard blue-green algae or whatever, but there's vegan omega-3 supplements basically. They're extracted from algae. So that's where you can get that from.
right.
And yeah, that's pretty much it, which is why there's a lot of challenge with vegetarians where they have this issue of being deficient, and this is one of the main challenges, is actually long chain omega-3s. Your body can make long chain out of medium chain. Your body can make it, say, out of hemp seed oil or flaxseed oil, but if you've got health challenges, a lot of the time it can't.
Right.
So that's the challenge.
So what about with like Fukushima, what's it called, you know, the radioactive thing with all the sea stuff?
Fukushima.
Cesium.
What about it?
So I
Fish.
reckon it's sort of getting into all the sea fishes and
Okay, I mean, I think there's been over like 100 nuclear explosions and tests in various areas and seas throughout the world, so this last thing isn't going to make a huge amount of difference. The other thing I'd say is that if there's any, you know, scare stories aside, I'm not saying it doesn't matter, I'm not saying it isn't terrible, but I'm saying it's not actually significantly worse now than it was a year before. You know, it's been going on since the 50s, basically.
yeah.
Of anything that you're going to want to eat that has been anywhere near radioactivity, this is it. It's been proven that those who eat sea vegetables who have been near an explosion are
Absolutely.
significantly better off. So
Yeah.
do not be scared of having things like kelp or phytoplankton or krill or whatever because it's near something like that. Yeah, you want to get it further away ideally, but like I say, on the planet Earth there is nowhere. I mean, krill oil actually is probably the safest because it's Arctic. I don't believe that it's too cold up there to do nuclear explosion tests, so it's probably like the cleanest place in the world.
Which brings me to the point of like the shelf life of the oils, because I heard that especially the omega-3 oils, you have to use them pretty soon.
That is why I love krill oil, because it naturally comes with an antioxidant called astaxanthin, which is an incredibly powerful antioxidant. And as you probably know, antioxidants are preservatives.
Yes.
So if you get krill oil, it lasts a hell of a lot longer. I don't sell fish oil on my site. I don't recommend salmon oil or cod liver oil or whatever, because you're right, by the time the customer gets them, they're usually rancid.
Yeah.
But krill oil is really powerful. And hemp oil is my favourite in that regard in terms of the vegan world, because again, if you get it, it's usually green, right? It's got some chlorophyll in there. Again, it's got an antioxidant to protect it. So the basic bottom line of all this incredibly complicated theory, I'd say, is have some krill oil every day. 2 tablets, capsules, 1,000 milligrams is good for most people. But if you have severe issues, if you have brain fog, if you have lack of clarity, memory, all that kind of thing, even up to 4, 6, 8 capsules a day is really helpful. Also, if you have menstrual issues, again, large dosages over the course of a couple of months can be really powerful, really helpful. And then also make sure you have some hemp seed oil, because it's the safest of the vegan oils. It's also got GLA, which is your long chain omega-6, and so that means you've got everything in a nice, safe, easy form. So hemp oil every day, tablespoon or 2, krill oil every day, 2 or 4 capsules, omega-3s, done.
And the krill comes only in capsules?
Can we do hand swing so it's not all at once? I think you were first.
So
Yeah.
if you've got hemp oil sitting in the fridge that's been in the fridge door for the last 6 months or more, is it still okay? It's been opened
It's borderline.
and it's had that much taken out of
It
it?
depends on your standards.
She has them.
Okay, that is great. Next question.
No, I was okay. I thought you were saying something else.
Okay.
Right. Regarding the hemp oil, I'm okay having it maybe once a week. Tastes great. If I have it every day, I literally feel like sick, but I can eat hemp seeds every day without a problem.
Okay.
I don't know why that is, you know.
Could be because the hemp oil's too rancid for you. I mean, as soon as...
They're not fresh, you know.
Unless you're extracting yourself, my point still stands.
Yeah.
You know, some people are a hell of a lot more sensitive to the rancidity of oils than others. So it could be
Okay.
that it's too rancid for you. Could be.
But on a fresh, no, when I have a fresh bottle, you know.
Yeah, but how many months is
Sure,
that
one.
since that was actually originally extracted, is my point.
Well, the one that we got was the one from Glastonbury, which was freshly extracted. And
What, you saw them do it?
well, no, but we were told that they're straight, you know, and it does taste better than the others. But the second day, I go, if I leave it out for a whole week and then have it again, just once a week, then I can take it.
Okay.
That's the, you know, that's the
I
odd
don't
thing.
know,
It's the
but
same oil.
I don't know, but the most obvious explanation for me is that you react to rancid oils more than most
Yeah, but
people.
it's the same oil that I'm using the following week.
Right, so if you have a rancid oil every day, you're going to react to it more than if you have it once a week.
Okay.
Yeah?
No, krill. I have no understanding about what krill is. Krill
A
oil.
krill is a tiny little shrimp type creature. It's one of the most abundant life forms on Earth, along with
Okay.
plankton. About 10%
Is that what the
of all
whales
life
eat?
on Earth.
Yeah.
If you weigh it, it's krill. And because it's so low down the food chain, it's probably the least toxic thing you can find in the sea as well.
Okay. And
Unlike fish, the higher up the food chain, the more
Right,
toxic.
of course.
So tuna is very, krill very little.
Right. So, but then you said it comes in capsules. It doesn't come as an oil. It comes as in capsules.
Yes.
So you can't get it as in a liquid form. It always comes in capsules.
I've never seen it in liquid form.
Okay.
You can open the capsules.
You can open the capsules,
Yeah.
you don't like capsules, yeah.
All right.
Yeah, why not?
I just had this thought, because I know it's not the oil, but I remember going into a pet shop and they had this massive, great big bucket of krill.
Okay.
So, would you be able to put that in a meal, and would that be the same sort of thing, or?
I think if you were able to...
It wasn't a pet shop, it was a
fishing shop, wasn't
Fish
it?
shop.
Yeah,
It
you
was
got
a
your
fish
fish
shop,
shop,
yeah.
If you were able to extract oils from tiny crustaceans, then maybe as part of your kitchen setup. But I still think
Juice them.
I still think
The oil.
Neptune krill oil is the one of the advantages of it is pure. It's taken from one of the, so compared to a pond in a pet shop in Southampton and like the Arctic, you want to go for the Arctic one. Okay, that's enough about that. One more thing about the area of Jing. A lot of the time your body actually struggles to take up all this stuff, right? So areas that relate to Jing as well. So Jing is your reserve energy, adaptive energy, you're still with me, right? So let's look at the organ systems, right? So for Qi, we said it was the digestive system and the respiratory system, right? For Jing, it is the kidney organ system. But the kidney organ system actually applies to way more than you might think. So your brain is part of the kidney organ system. The central nervous system is part of the kidney organ system. All the bones, joints, tendons, ligaments in your body are the kidney organ system. The kidneys, unsurprisingly, are the kidney organ system. The adrenal glands are part of the kidney organ system. The sexual glands are part of the kidney organ system. The sexual hormones. Sorry?
Not much left in your body that isn't part of the kidney system.
Well,
No.
yeah, it's a decent
But a lot
chunk
of
of
people
it.
don't know this. This is very important information.
No, I appreciate that.
And generally, thank you, and generally when, and bladder, that's the other one I almost left out, so
Okay.
bladder as well as the kidneys as well. So the reason I mention this is that it can be of interest is because often if you have problems with one, you have problems with all of them, you know, so often with chronic fatigue, you've got problems with sore joints, and your memory is foggy, right? And you're overly stressed, which is the adrenal glands, and you pee too frequently, and you've got menstrual problems, and you've got, so it's like it all comes together, and that's because it's all part of one organ system. And the good thing about realising that is you think you have 10 problems or 50 problems, and you actually only got one,
Right.
which makes it a bit more manageable. I just need to get more Jing. I just need to sort out my kidney organ system, and everything else sorts itself out. An example of all this is acidity. Acidity will eat away. So if you have acidity in your blood, then your body will rob from your bones and joints and tendons to neutralise that, and it will fire up your adrenal glands because you're stressed, because you're in a state, which will then send your cortisol out of balance, which then messes up your hormonal balance, which then means you might have too high progesterone or too low estrogen or whatever it might be. So it all gets thrown out of balance with something as simple as what we're talking about here: dehydration, demineralization, right? All these complicated things, and then we look for complicated answers like, oh, well, hormone balance, blah blah blah, and all this, and chiropractic treatments, but really all it is just the basics, not doing the basics,
Right.
getting your energy back up. Now the challenge can be that when you're low in all this stuff, that even when you give it to your body, it doesn't know what to do with it. So a common example of that is with water, you know. You've been dehydrated for 20 years, you start drinking water again, and it seems to just go straight through you. Now, whenever I hear that from people, I do just say to them, listen, would you drink what came out as readily as you drink what you've put in? We might have one of those people here, they do exist, urine therapy, but generally the answer is no. And there's a reason for that, it's because what's going out isn't the same as what's going in. You've taken a load of toxins and carried them out with you. So as much as you may think it's going straight through me, it's pointless. No, it's not. Even if it's going straight through you, it's still not pointless. It's taking some bad stuff out, okay? So it's better than nothing. But there is that challenge. It's like the cells, it's a bit like, you know, you have a pot plant where you forget to water it for a long time and it becomes really dry. And then you try, oh, I'll put some more in it now, I finally remember, it's straight through. Right? So that's how the cells can become. They resist taking up water. So getting the right electrolytes, getting the right essential fats helps with that. Having decent quality water, like fresh spring water you've collected yourself, your cells are a lot more likely to take that up than, say, you know, London tap water, right? Because it's more welcoming. But even then, even if you've got the fresh spring water, it's possible that your body's just forgotten. And that is where often the herbs come in and really help. So Rejuvenate is the kidney tonic herb ones that I do, particularly the formula. And what that does is it teaches your body and shows your body how to actually use all that stuff again. That's one of the main points of it, in my opinion. There's loads of other benefits. It's high in minerals, it's high in blah, blah, blah. But the main point of it, as far as I'm concerned, is it shows your body how to take those raw materials and turn them into Jing. So you have those reserves again. Oh, let's look at Jing quickly in the Western world. So what are the ways you can normally describe Jing in Western terminology? So, you know when you say that a person has a lot of sexual energy? Right? Anyone heard that before? Animal magnetism, right? Charisma. That's Jing. You know, some people are like really cool and grounded and calm, and you can really trust them in a crisis. You know that they're not going to flip out because they're really solid and grounded. That's Jing. You know, the kind of person that no matter what life throws at them, they just kind of effortlessly step around it and don't let it upset them, don't let it get them down. That's Jing. Okay. Mental energy. That's Jing as well. So someone who's able to think clearly, someone who's sharp, right? Someone who's on the ball. That's Jing. Someone who's present, someone who's really right here, right now, rather than off living in their imagination. That's Jing, okay? So if that's you, everything I've just described, if you're full of sexual energy and mental energy and all the rest of it, if you have high endurance, that's Jing, right? If you're low in those kind of things, or some of those kind of things, it's going to tend to be a low level of Jing. Now, I think it's interesting that there are actually like three main components of Jing. One is endurance, which relates to your body's capacity to heal and build itself back up again. And that relates to bone marrow and stem cells and your body's ability to heal itself. One is the sexual element, right, which relates to your hormones. And the other is and then the mental element, right, which relates more to your levels of neurotransmitters. So what I notice is some lucky people have an abundance of Jing, and they have an abundance of all three of those. They're really hardworking and full of endurance, and they're sexy and charismatic, and they're really sharp and on the ball. But some people don't have enough Jing, and it's kind of like they make a choice at some point to put some Jing into one and not the other, you know? Some people are very sexy and lovely and magnetic, but they're kind of dumb. You know? But some people are really sharp and on the ball, but they tire very easily, right? Or some people just have endless endurance, but they're not very pretty, you know, or whatever. So most people, they kind of dedicate their energy that they have to some of those. And so I guess what we want with the Jing, we want as much as we possibly can so we can dedicate it to all of those. We can have high levels of sexual hormones, high levels of the right amounts of neurotransmitters available to us, right? And high levels of stem cells as well to give us that endurance to keep rebuilding ourselves no matter what's going on. That's my personal perspective on it. I haven't read that anywhere, but that's what I've said. Jing. Is that enough on Jing for now? Awesome. And we'll do herbs in a minute, but if you understand the energies and if you understand the organ systems, which is what we're doing now, all the herbs are quite simple. I can just say to you, oh, that's Jing, that's Qi, and you go, oh, right, that's simple, right? But if you try and understand the herbs on their own without having a basis in the complete system, it's complete mystery. It's like, what energy? Don't get it, right? So when you understand this, huge. And you can also apply it to other areas of your life. You can apply it to people. I mean, hopefully, as many of you are listening to this right now, you're thinking, oh, this person in my life, oh, my boss, he's really low in G. Or, oh, yeah, you know, my best friend, she's really high in Chi, or whatever. Like, think about it. And I also want you to think about yourselves in each of these areas as well, you know? Rate yourself. How am I doing in each of these areas? Because although all of this is hopefully relevant, interesting information to you, you want to know what to apply to yourself, particularly, right? And that's where these kind of diagnostic tools that I'm throwing in are there for you as well, that you can go, you know what, all of that sounds good, Elwyn, but I've just realised my main challenge is Chi, and you know what, I'm just going to work on breathing better and digesting better, and that's it. Alright, so you can specialise, you can focus on whatever's important to you. Now, if you are one of those kind of people, that you've kind of mentioned that you are, who finds it hard to consistently follow through on things, then it may be that you're struggling with the third type of energy, which the Chinese called Shen. And I often translate this as the energy of integrity.
How do you spell that? S-H-E-N?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Shen. It's
Okay.
very similar to the Japanese word Zen.
Okay.
So a Zen master,
Then
Shen,
Ah, okay.
kind of interchangeable.
Okay.
So,
So you try to say I have no integrity.
no, I'm trying to say that you told me that you don't. I don't know you, I have no idea.
Oh, I bet you've seen enough. It's just that. That was enough.
Now the interesting thing about this is, like, even now we're joking about it, we're going to judgments. Isn't it interesting that if someone has, like, we're all are, interesting if someone has low levels of, like, Chi, for instance, then we're, oh, you know, poor them, right? But if someone has low levels of Shen, we're like, loser, waster, right? No integrity, right? So easy to jump to judgment. And that's one of the things I loved about this system, is I realised, okay, no matter where you're at, and I've obviously, you know, I used to be a drug addict. Who am I to talk to anyone about integrity? As, you know, I mean, there's a way of life, right? Integrity is not something that you necessarily are, which is how most of us think of it. It's not even something that you kind of have. It's something that you do, and you do it in relation to the amount of this integrity energy that you have, this Shen. So, you know, it's all very well to walk around being of the utmost integrity and all the rest of it, but if you struggle with that, then rather than going to judgment yourself, look at how can I build up that energy where I can have more integrity, right? Integrity is just my interpretation for it, but I'm really using the integrity in the world of not just in the moral sense, but also in the structural sense.
Like an integrated system.
Yeah, exactly, an integrated system. So the way that the Taoists saw it is that they didn't see that we had one soul, they saw that we had many souls. In fact, one related to each of these organ systems that I'm talking to you about. So for instance, they would say, you have all these different souls, all these different parts of you, and they all have different agendas, right? So say the stomach just wants to digest and eat food, right? And the sexual organs just want to have sex. And the neocortex just wants to learn, right? And then the amygdala just wants excitement, right? And the heart just wants to connect with people, right? And the liver just wants to create. And you have all these different agendas within you. And the way that I experience most people, especially most people who are low in Shen, is that they feel torn between all these different agendas all the time. So there's no unity. There's no unity of purpose within you. It's like, oh God, I've got this thing, and oh, I've got that thing, and oh, I don't know what to do first. I don't know what's most important. I'm just being pulled everywhere by all these different urges and appetites and things inside me. So that is what we refer to as low Shen. And that's really what I mean by integrity. So integrity to me is where you marshal and rally all the different parts of yourself together and move forward in a unified, purposeful way, rather than feeling like you're constantly moving in different directions and never really getting anywhere. Okay? So having all of you come together in a whole unified way and all moving towards a purpose. That's what high levels of Shen means to me. You can tell people who have high Shen, generally they have, yes, high integrity. They also tend to be quite authoritative. They tend to be kind of more leader types, not necessarily in any grand sense. They could just be the leader of their household, you know. But they're the people who people naturally look up to for guidance as to which way to go, because they have a clearer understanding of what's going on, like the lay of the land. The other interpretation I used to give it more often is perspective energy, you know, because when you're being pulled by all these different agendas, it's like you're stuck on ground level, and there's all these different things going in different directions, and you can't see the forest for the trees. So as much as you do want to be present, you also want to be able to take a bird's eye view and just go, you know what? even though this thing might give me pleasure now, the instant gratification factor, right? In 20 years' time, I actually want whatever I want then, you know? Or on my deathbed, I want to be able to look back and think, I lived a worthwhile life. So you know what? I'm not just going to give in to that instinct. I'm not just going to give in to that temptation. I'm not just going to give in to that addiction, because I'm thinking long term.
Right.
I've got a broad perspective. And that, again, relates to sharing energy. So as much as we want to be present in the moment right here, right now, we also want to be able to detach and look as if from above and go, you know what, bird's eye view of my life, this is what's really important. This is what I'm going to do.
Focus, right?
Focus on what's really important.
Yes.
Yeah.
Focus.
But from a detached point is also
Yes.
the point that I'm making, rather than getting caught up, right? We want to feel our emotions, definitely. No one wants to telling you to be repressed, but we also don't want to be the slave to them, you know? Just because you feel angry at someone doesn't mean you have to shout at them, you know? Just because you're, just because you're anxious, right, doesn't mean you have to overeat. You don't have to do it. That's the Shen thing, right? So, the health of our Shen actually relates again to physical organs, believe it or not. Anyone believe that might be possible, that your moral integrity is to do with your physical organs? Yeah, all buying that as a possibility. Sorry?
Everything's to do with everything, isn't it?
There you go, yeah, that sounds like
It's
a
all
Taoist.
connected.
So the organs which are really relevant are the heart and the liver. Okay? The heart and the liver. And they have kind of opposite functions. So it's the heart's job to say yes, to embrace everything. Yes, yes to life. Yes to connection, yes to love, yes to passion, yes to you, yes to everything, right? That's what the heart's for, yes. But then it's the liver's job to say, actually, no.
No wonder we're confused.
Right? Boundaries, assertiveness, you know? As much as we want to say yes, yes to everything, yes to everything, yes to pizza, yes to Coca-Cola, yes to, oh, wait a minute, right? So we can get into trouble with that if we just say yes to everything. Of course, if we say no to everything, we'll get into trouble as well. We're just going to live a completely boring, monotonous, nothing life, right? So we need to have a balance between that which we embrace and take on and commit to and dedicate our passion to, and that which we say, actually no. Okay? It's interesting that the word decision is very similar to incision. It means to cut away. Like a decision is basically saying no to every infinite possibility except one. And that's the one you just chose. That's what you decided on. Most people struggle with decisions, especially when they have liver issues. Most people struggle with assertiveness, especially when they have liver issues. Just to say, you know, no, I have the right to actually exist, you know. People who have self-worth issues, self-esteem issues, which again is most people, in my experience, you know, don't feel valuable enough, don't feel worthwhile enough, don't feel like you deserve to be loved, don't feel like you deserve to have attention, don't feel like you deserve for you to look after you, all of those kind of issues, right? That's because you're not saying yes, you're not embracing and loving yourself. And maybe you're not saying no to those people who are trying to steal your time or you know, drag you or lead you or manipulate you in the wrong direction, right? So I'm not saying you have to make your life all about you, but your first responsibility is to you and your body. Followed very closely, second responsibility to your children, if you have any, right? And yet most of us don't prioritise our own well-being first. And that, again, is a low Shen thing. So the more you increase your Shen energy, the less likely you are to struggle with any of that kind of thing. If you look at it physically as well, the liver's job really is to screen out and filter out everything that's negative, right? So as much as it's doing that inside your body, it's also kind of a reflection of what you need to be doing in the outside world, all negative influences, you know, whether it's people, whether it's media and advertising and news, whether it's toxins, physical toxins, whether it's toxic food, all that kind of stuff, right? You need to be able to say no to that and feel good about it rather than being a stress if you really want to be healthy, if you really want to have long-term sustainable energy, okay? And if you struggle with that, on the other hand, that's where you normally get emotions like, for the liver, it's like anger. Anger is usually where you can't assert yourself and you get upset because you can't assert yourself and then you get angry. Or some people, they don't assert themselves and then they get angry and then they swallow it. And then that turns into sadness usually and depression and feelings of worthlessness. Passive aggressive, yeah, in terms of the way they behave. You know? Also jealousy, guilt, you know, oh, I should have said something, oh, I should have done the right thing, you know, oh, what? Well, I've only, oh, I'm such an idiot, oh. So it's all the liver churning away, oh. right? Or the heart, you know, like I said, the heart is your love and your passion, but you know, when the heart is not allowed to get what it wants, then it tends to suffer from frustration, impatience, right? Sometimes even extremes can be things like cruelty or hatred, you know, sometimes different from anger. Anger is just like, you know, but hatred is like, you know, like I wish this person, this thing or whatever didn't exist and I want to destroy it. It's a little bit different from just being angry. That's like an extreme heart imbalance, right?
Really?
It's extreme negative passion.
Yeah, it's a negative passion, exactly, but it is passion, right?
It's extreme, yeah.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry.
That's the thing, and you know, there are plenty of targets in the world which are suitable. You know, we have things that we should feel guilty about. We are not good enough, blah, 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 right, in our behaviour sometimes. And there are plenty of things that deserve our upset, like Halliburton and Carlisle and Monsanto and all the rest of it. Yeah, sure. But does it really serve us to feel that way? Does it really get us closer to fulfilling what we are here to do on this planet? And usually, the answer to that is no. And even if your job is to take down Monsanto, for instance, hypothetically, that's why you're on this earth, it still doesn't help you to be consumed with hatred, because that is just burning your body out really quickly, right?
If you stay detached, you get further.
Exactly. Yeah, you can be detached, you can play the game, and you can take them down from the inside or whatever. So, that's a little bit on Shen. I think most of the things for Shen are more like mindset and psychological, and I kind of do a different training on that I won't go into today. But there is also the physical aspect, you know, if you cleanse out your liver, if you detoxify your body, then you are going to find it easier to do these things, right? To have higher integrity and to be aware more and to have more of the healthy emotions show up.
I'm sorry.
What's the most effective way of detoxing then?
The most effective way of detoxing, good question. I do a whole training on that, but I'll sum it up for you, okay? The main challenge that I find is that when people try and detoxify, they try and cellularly detoxify first, which to me is the worst way. And examples, anything that is a significant improvement in your health routine, whether it's way less meat and potatoes, way more greens, whether it's way less cooked food and more raw food, whether it's way more exercise or less sitting in front of the TV, all of these things are incredibly good. But the challenge is, as soon as you take that stress off the body, it will start to release toxicity from the cells. Now this is actually bad and, in my experience and opinion now, often even potentially dangerous if the exit routes aren't clear. So the first thing to focus on with detoxification, in my experience now, is not more food or more this or that or anything else. It's clear your exits, right? Anyone know the main detoxification, the main toxin exit pathway of your body? The main way that toxins leave your body? The majority of toxins leave your body?
It's either going to be breath or skin, I would guess.
Skin? No. 20% roughly is through the skin.
Breath.
Breath, yeah. About 70% is through your breath.
Really?
So again, it should be. So if you are not breathing well, that's why all your other detoxification pathways are blocked. That's why your skin's blocked. That's why your bladder might be getting frequent infections and being so acidic. That's why your bowels are blocked. Because the skin is not, because the lungs are not doing their job. So again, it goes back to that lesson about breath. Learn to breathe well, frequently detoxify the skin, right? Both by exfoliating and skin brushing stuff, and, in my experience, also saunas, regular heat, so you sweat the toxins out, actively get toxins out. Even though the skin isn't the main one, it's my favourite, because it's the only one that doesn't require the toxins to go via the blood. Your toxins can go from cells to lymph to skin and out. Because as soon as toxins go from cells to lymph to blood, that's when you feel bad. You feel bad when they hit your blood. So if you can get them straight out via the skin, that is ideal. And then the bladder as well, with drinking well, water, minerals, alkaline stuff like we've already talked about. And then the bowels. And even though the bowels is only about 2% of your toxins being released, it is still a very, very crucial 2%. Because if you don't keep your bowels clear, then the colon walls will absorb those toxins back into the bloodstream, where it then poisons everything else again. So basically, all of them are important. And it's my recommendation that before someone tries a detox, like a juice fast or anything like that, they work on routinely, daily, keeping their exit routes clear first. And doing that will reduce 90% or more of negative detox symptoms and reactions, which the most people suffer from. It's even got a name, it's called Herxheimer syndrome, right? which is the detox reactions. And depending on how toxic the person is, sometimes they're not completely avoidable, but the vast majority of suffering can be reduced, at least, just by keeping those exit paths clear. Hope that answers that question. Excellent. Do you have a question, Jenny?
I was just wondering about, with the bowels,
Mm-hmm.
what would you I mean, I've heard colonic irrigation obviously is one thing there, but are there others? And I suppose also in colonic irrigation, if you would recommend that. I've again heard that some practitioners are way better than others, and do you know if you've got any advice on that?
Yeah, that's definitely true. Yeah. Personal recommendation, I think, is probably the best way to find a colonic practitioner. Because a lot of them do not know what they do not know how to do it very well, and I've heard some horror stories from people. However, the chances of actual horror stories are more in terms of their emotional experience of it. The chances of actual there being any damage is pretty remote. I've never heard of a case.
But then if you have a bad emotional experience with one, you might never go to a good one.
Sure, which is why it is important to go to a good one. So do I think it's a good idea to have a colonic? Yes, absolutely. To me, that would be part of the whole keeping the bowels clear, ideally. It is expensive, it is sometimes hard to reach, and it is, time. So if you can't do it, you could still be healthy. It's not like we're breathing. Like, you have to breathe, you don't have to have a colonic. But a colonic will really help if you can, as will an enema. Magnesium is really good, having enough water is really good. There are also herbs for it. I've got something on their website called intestinal movement formula, which is really good to very gently get the bowels moving again for people who are struggling with that. A lot of people like to use psyllium and bentonite clay to kind of push the stuff which is stuck in the bowels through. I'm not so keen on that because I think sometimes it can get stuck in there and then you actually feel a lot worse, especially if you're dehydrated anyway, which a lot of people are. So I use something called intestinal drawing formula, which is a way to just clear the bowels out. So intestinal drawing formula, intestinal movement formula, do those two together. They're just Health Force Nutritionals, I don't know if anyone's heard of them. Really good cleanse by them. So yeah, that's kind of it for the bowels. So, eat well, drink well, magnesium, manually clear it out ideally with colonics and enemas, and then get rid of the backlog with some kind of herbs like the ones I just recommended.
And you mentioned earlier a liver flush. I don't really know what's involved in a liver flush.
I don't want to go into that today because it's a big topic again, but the bottom line of liver flush I'll say is this: if your bowels are not clear, do not do a liver flush. Right. And if your bowels are really nicely, perfectly clear, then often your liver starts flushing spontaneously. Okay. So much more important to get your bowels clear for your liver's sake, ironically.
Is it covered in the higher education,
High Energy Academy?
HEA, that's the one I mean.
It will be,
higher
yeah.
education, that's fine.
But it's right at the end because it's dangerous. I've known people who do it and they have big problems, big infections and stuff like that. So we
I
need
won't
to.
rush into it.
Yeah.
As long as it's coming up there, that's great.
Don't recommend it to people casually.
I think just what you said is very important because I was always very leery about the liver cleanse that people do without really cleaning other stuff out first.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's your intuition again, spot on.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Tell you that grass juice is really magical, believe it or not. You're doing that for 20 years, you're getting some amazing stuff going.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. I didn't really cover green so much because I know you've only done it recently, but of course that's an essential part of the whole alkalinity thing for the Jing,
Yeah.
Really, really important part of it as well. So I think that's probably as much as I'm going to do on all the free energies, probably more than enough for most people when you're at saturation level, yeah? Not quite? Okay, awesome. Huh? Okay, awesome. Well, let me do my little product as a little thing. So what have we got here? So first of all, we've got Rejuvenate. These are herbs for the kidney organ system, especially. Now, they're actually, I could do a little bit more than if you haven't quite had enough of me yet. There's two facets of Jing, right? You've got Yin Jing and Yang Jing. Yin Jing and Yang Jing. Okay. So Yin Jing is more the recover, recuperate, restore, replenish, rejuvenate, hence the word, aspect of Jing. It's the endurance, building you back up again. And then Yang Jing is more the mental power, sexual power, athletic power, putting yourself out there, part of Jing. Okay, so it relates more to the sexual hormones and the neurotransmitters, right? So this is pretty much exclusively Yin Jing. That's because I think it's most important to replenish yourself first before you start trying to push yourself out there more, So get yourself right before you push yourself out there. And normally women understand this. It's normally guys who are like, yeah, but I want something to have more drive and all the rest of it. I'm like, yeah, but you are exhausted. You know, you need to get your reserves back up before you try pushing yourself out there in the world too hard. So yeah, that's why I make this exclusively yin jing, which is fairly rare for Chinese herbal formulas. But I feel like times have changed since they were first created. We are much more depleted than we ever have been due to, you know, stress and environmental factors. So that's what that one is for. This one, strength, I created originally as kind of, I was very much in the raw vegan world, and there are basically two challenges that people have when they are, well, raw vegan. There's one challenge that they tend to have when they're raw, one that they tend to have when they're a vegan. When you're a vegan, you tend to lack a little bit of yang jing. For whatever reason that isn't quite understood in Western science yet, if you eat exclusively vegan foods, you seem to have a little bit less oomph, a little bit less hormonal power. You know, it's quite a classic stereotype, the pale, weak, pasty vegan. You know, it's like you're lacking a little bit of force and vim and vigour. This doesn't have to be the case, because herbs can give you that yang jing power. You know, there's a handful of them, and there are also some animal herbs like deer antler that you may have heard of, which are also high in
Deer antler, yes.
yeah, which are high in yang jing without actually harming any animals, depending on where you draw that line, if it's relevant to you. But this is exclusively a vegan one, so there's no, you know, animal type things in there. And it's yang jing, because that tends to be lacking in vegan food. And then it's also a spleen warming formula. It's a digestion, heating, stimulating formula, because if you eat a lot of raw food, as much as that can be wonderful in a lot of ways, it can also create what's called a damp spleen in Chinese medicine. Damp spleen relates to things like food intolerances, candida, any kind of parasites actually, basically. Phlegm, you know, men tend to have particularly phlegm, mucus, all those are kind of signs of a damp spleen. And this is something that's helpful to get your digestive fire going again, okay? Because it's spleen tonifying. So there's a couple of herbs there. Whitey traculose is probably the main one. Astragalus is another one though that you may have heard of. Codonopsis. These are like really powerful digestive stimulants. And I realised probably only less than a year ago my digestive system really wasn't ideal from all this eating raw food all this time. So I did a really high dose of those particular herbs to build my digestion back up again. And I'm pleased to say now it's really good again. You know, I don't have any issues with it. But it took quite a lot. So that's kind of partly why I'm promoting that a little bit. Like in the raw vegan world, that's a good one to go for. Whereas most people, like, it's not like I'm trying to sell any more. Like most people tend to go for cleanse, right? In the raw, because that's what you've heard of, right? Cleansing, vegan, yeah, that's what we want to do. But actually, generally, what you want to do is strengthen your digestive system, so that then you have less that needs to be cleansed. Because every bit of food that you're eating and not digesting is rotting inside you and attracting more bacteria, more stuff, right? More parasites, fungus, whatever. So yeah, cleanse briefly.
And how much would you take when you say, you know, you did a high dose of it, but how much would you applicate to get real results from them? Bear in mind everyone is different, and I am very unsensitive. Like I am like I am the least sensitive as it has. It takes me a lot. The kind of amount of herbs that will last me for a week will last someone like my friend Shazzy 3 months, and she'll do just as well of it. So everyone is different. And really that is true, so, you know... Yeah, but how much would you drink in general? It depends on the person. Yeah, what I'm saying to you. When do you know you're having a result? When you feel better. Yeah, but how much would you drink? A daily, say 2 litres of it per day, or just whenever you feel like having a cup of tea? You would have it daily until you got a result. Okay. Definitely, yeah. And if it's in this form, a good starting dose is like 1 or 2 teaspoons a day. Some people that may be way too strong and they'll need less. Some people, like me, might decide they might want even more, but even I wouldn't have more than 3 teaspoons. So something like that. But what I'm saying, it's a big difference, you know, it could be like 1/4 to 1/2 teaspoon for the most sensitive people to 3 teaspoons. So it's not like a pharmaceutical. It's a sliding scale. Yeah, and you have to decide for yourself. Taste-based or? Sorry? Is it taste-based? If you're saying... What, no, it's sensitivity-based. Okay. Sensitivity. And sensitivity doesn't really have anything to do with anything that I've really been able to establish, like health or anything else. It's just people are different. These herbs work on a kind of level which is really hard to explain. I've tried to be scientific, as you've probably noticed along here, kind of giving you measurable things and relating it to scientific concepts. But these herbs actually do work on a level which is beyond all that and it's hard to describe. You know, they have a kind of sentience and intelligence of their own.
You know, their DNA kind of talks with our DNA in a way. An example of that would be the medicinal herbs like chaga, which are known as being immune modulating, which means that they don't just stimulate the immune system like something like echinacea does, they actually educate it as to how to work better. They're called double directional. So if your immune system's too up, like an autoimmune, it will get them to calm down. If it's too down, it will get them to, you know, do up, and both. And that requires something a little bit more than just biochemistry. There's some kind of intelligence in there. You know, there's something about it which is very interesting and very hard to justify or explain in scientific terms. And so I think that the amount of that intelligence that the person needs in order to have the communication, because to me the most powerful thing about herbs is not like the raw ingredients, although they are of course all categorized and all the rest of it, it's the quality of intelligence. It's a bit more like homeopathy, if people are familiar with that concept. Like, it actually gives a sense of message to your body. So the most powerful thing about, say, this to me is not just that it contains plenty of minerals and it's alkaline, and although all those things are true, it's that it says to your body, hey, cells, start taking in more of this water. Or, hey, cells, start getting that trans fat out and getting the omega-3s in its place. You know, it's actually giving messages to your body to work better. And that's not something I can justify or quantify based on, you know, the research as to how it happens, but the results, they have been quantified and justified. You know, there's a huge amount of research in Chinese medicine about these kind of herbs, and it's amazing the results that they're getting over there. You know, most of it hasn't even been translated to English. But exactly how it works, and that's where the sensitivity thing varies so much, you see, because it's not just pharmacological. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
it's
no,
based on the intelligence
I
of
just
it.
wanted a baseline on, you know.
Yeah, well, that's right on the packet. 1 or 2 teaspoons a day. Another one, what have we got here? Serenity. So one of the reasons I fell in love with, I feel like a salesman now, shall I just stop? Do you want to hear this?
No, we want
One of the reasons I did fall in love with Taoist medicine is because of this concept called Shen, which I told you about, you know. I love the idea. Sorry?
Reserve energy, Shen.
Shen is the integrity energy.
Oh, Shen is the integrity.
The last one we did.
Oh,
Heart and the liver. So the thing I love about that is that rather than being in judgment of those people in my life who I thought weren't acting in integrity, I could realise, and myself, right, because really if you're judging people for not having integrity, who are you really judging, right? It's always going to be yourself. But rather than judging and condemning, we can step into, it's just a deficiency of a certain kind of energy, and you can help that person. The challenge is that a person with low integrity is far harder to help than a person with low anything else, right? Low blood sugar or anything, you know. If your integrity is low, then you can say, oh, okay, all you need to do to be healthy is take this magic potion, right? And then they don't do it, you know. So what can you do? How can you help them, right? So it's a bit of a catch-22 situation. So what I love about the Tao systems, they actually had a way to jumpstart Shen, and that is Shen tonic herbs. So reishi is one example. That's the most famous. That's a Shen tonic herb. Chaga is another example. That's a Shen tonic herb. The medicinal mushrooms, as they're referred to in general, are Shen tonics, with the exception maybe of cordyceps, because that's not a tree mushroom. That's the caterpillar one, if anyone's heard of that. But all the tree medicinal mushrooms, they're all Shen tonic herbs. And then there's other ones as well, like asparagus root, wild asparagus root, albizia, bark and flower. And if you look at the kind of pharmacopoeia of these things, they have really interesting uses. Like this one makes you fly in your dreams. Okay. You know, and this one makes you let go of a loved one who's died. Okay, you know, and it's like all kind of, it's healing not just the body, not just even the central nervous system, but healing the soul. That's really the point of Shen tonic herbs. They make you feel okay, you know, they make you feel better about your life. Now, of course, you know, there's no magic potion which will cure grief necessarily overnight or whatever, but it's possible, you know, and it's happened to many people. Often when you start taking these, if you do have major kind of soul issues that need to be dealt with, you might find that you're having very powerful dreams or vivid dreams, right? And that could be because this is working on you, and this is helping to resolve things, because dreams is one of the ways that we resolve our past. It's one of the ways we resolve traumas and griefs and upsets and all the rest of it, is we dream our way through it. And so, you know, these herbs have been shown again and again to stimulate that, okay? So this is really to heal the soul. Does it have effects? Yeah, it especially also helps the immune system, okay? So on a physical level, that's proven, documented. Shen herbs tend to also be good for the immune system, which I think is interesting, because like, the immune system is kind of like your aura, which keeps negative stuff out. And the interesting is your soul and your spirit get stronger, you're more likely to have less psychic negativity, and you're more likely to have less physical negativity, right? It's like there's an immune system for your soul as well, and That's really what serenity is to me. Again, not really scientifically justifiable, but based on 5,000 years of documented history, that is what they would say would be justifiable. Which then brings us to immune. Some similar herbs between serenity and immune. Immune has more of a focus on the physical, whereas this is more on the heart kind of level. So with immune, is more medicinal mushrooms, cat's claw, which is my pretty much only non-Chinese herb that I have in here, because it's so awesome. Anyone here heard of cat's claw? Yeah, excellent, excellent immune herb. And again, a tonic, double directional herb. And what do we have? And that is it. Oh, and I've got the mineral oil because we all need magnesium. Most of us do anyway. And Hoshi Wu. Hoshi Wu is one of my favourite, we didn't do the individual kidney herbs, did we? Hoshi Wu is one of my favourite kidney herbs. It's got a nice mild taste. In fact, these two together make a beautiful, like, little cappuccino kind of caramelly. You tried it before, you're nodding your head. Yeah, so, you know, really nice. My favourite kidney herb, though, to be honest, is probably Schizandra, which I don't have for sale here today, but just to let you know, incredibly powerful. It's really good to help your body to, so one of the messages it sends to your body, or maybe it sells it from the idea, is to hold on to your energy. So it's called a Jin locker inner. It locks your Jin in. The way that the Taoists saw it is that people tend to leak Jin. So this sexual energy, mental energy, whatever, it's like, again, they're like a bucket with a hole in it, right? To use that metaphor from earlier. It's just leaking out of them, leaking out of them. So what the Schizandra does especially, which is why it's one of the main ingredients in there, is it locks your energy in. And an example of how you can see that your Jing is leaking is if you sweat way too easily, or you pee way too frequently, right? Those are examples of...
What were the examples? I'm sorry.
Sorry?
I missed what they were examples of.
The Jing leaking out of you, this reserve energy leaking out of you. So those are like physical signs of it. They're not definite, but if you tend to have a lot of fluids leaving your body as a general, more than you would like, more frequently than you'd like, then we could say, maybe I've got energy leaking out of me, and I want to use a tonic herb like Schizandra, especially to lock that energy in and stop it from draining away.
Using just because I make elixirs and I just put big handfuls of things in, and Schizandra is one I tend to sort of like just put a little bit.
Yeah, you don't use a lot of Schizandra.
Yeah. So how much? You know, I'm usually, my pot's about this big. So how much would you put in for that size?
You're making tea?
Yeah.
For that size, I'd still say a handful.
Yeah.
Make sure Schizandra is good quality. The vast majority of it is not. If it looks like little black peppercorns, that's not the way it's supposed to look. Good Schizandra looks red or purple. Yeah, you've got good stuff. That's great.
Yeah.
But most of what's on sale.
Which one this is? Because I got it from the Chinese acupuncturist place. I don't know.
Good. So yeah, but most of what's sold in the raw food world is really substandard Schizandra. That's the only reason I mention it.
I've found
Right.
the
So is it
opposite.
better to get?
Interesting.
Oh right. Where do you
Only-
get good quality Schizandra in the raw food?
Got it through like a raw food website.
Which
I've
one?
got decent stuff. Happily Raw.
Oh, I'm in conversation with them. I hadn't heard of them until a week ago. So
All right.
cool.
What are they called?
I'll find
So
out.
then,
What
Tree
are they
harvest one's
called?
bad though.
Happily Raw.
Yeah.
Oh, happy.
They are.
Happily.
Oh really? Because I get most of my stuff from Tree Harvest.
I'm not saying most of that stuff is bad. I'm saying the Schizandra is.
Alright, okay.
Yeah.
But I said the last lot of Shazam I got, it was from the acupuncturist.
The best Schizandra I've ever tried. I'm not just saying this. Is from Lionheart Herb. Yeah, it is. But no, not the whole one. The extract.
Right.
I don't sell the whole ones anymore because I can't get any decent ones. I'm interested that Happily Raw has them. I'll ask them.
Right.
But the extract is exceptional quality
Okay.
of the Schizandra particularly.
What did we drink earlier?
That was strength. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for the prompt. So that was the strength tea. So what's the reason for that? I wanted you to have a little bit of oomph, a little bit of putting yourself out there, kind of thing, right? So that then you would engage. And look, you have.
Dropped on mine, but I still engaged.
You still engaged. You had a little bit.
I did have a little bit.
So I wanted to have this before because it's kind of stimulating. You know, some people find it more stimulating than others, especially guys. Sometimes they're like, it's very stimulating. I remember like, it's like very stimulating, like Viagra stimulating. Okay. Well, it doesn't have that effect on me. I have heard this. I certainly can't, promise it. I think for the vast majority of people, it's just a little bit stimulating, right? We'd be going here for 2.5 hours, I think. We start at 11, or is that clock roll?
No, the clock
No,
must
we
be
did
off.
start at 11 because I arrived at
11. Yeah, we started 11, just half. So we've actually been going longer than 2 hours, and you're all still here with me, present, paying attention, engaging. even though I'm boring.
I'm
Isn't that
dropping
amazing?
off
Just
now.
shows how incredibly energized you must be.
You might be boring, but the
Well,
subject
but you
is.
know how it is. It is when it's an engaging conversation or sharing that time stops. You're not really noticing time anymore because it's really like getting your attention.
Yeah,
I mean, this
Right.
was interactive, which is very different
it helps, yeah.
rather than the seminar and listening.
And Rejuvenate will be the other one that we try, and we'll try that in a minute. And that's because now we're done, we're just going to replace, replenish, and feel good for
So
our
that's
diet.
the one you recommended first for the digestive system or something, Rejuvenate, or which one?
Strength of the digestive system.
Strength.
So it's like, everyone throw out issues that you have and I'll point, okay? So
Okay.
digestion,
Yeah.
strength. Next one.
Can I ask?
No,
I
let's
still
play this
have
game
other
first.
What
teas.
issue?
Let's,
Yeah.
can we play the game first?
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
I have 3 really, really, really loose teeth.
Rejuvenate.
That's the one I was going to get.
Not excellent. Not just Rejuvenate, you need to get your minerals, but Rejuvenate will help with the minerals and it also contains some. I'd also have high levels of sea vegetables, I'd take a magnesium supplement, I'd take a silica supplement, I'd take a vitamin D3 and K2 supplement.
Yeah, I make phosphate too.
That's silica then, yeah. I'd have D3 and K2, that would really be what I'd be on top of that you may not already be.
I have got some D3 spray, and I do have K2, but I haven't
Do you
got
use
that
it?
on
So get it and take it every day. And
You
get it,
need serenity.
and get it tested as well, the D3, because it can be really, especially in this climate, you could, even if you're supplementing 10,000 IUs a day, you can still be chronically deficient.
Yeah,
To
because
get
the
it
code
tested.
says about have that 10 or something, doesn't it? But they don't say that when you
Well, you
Yeah.
can also have too much, which is why you want to test it.
right.
It's
Sorry,
worth testing.
I've lost
So
what
how
you're
do you get it
testing.
tested?
D3, vitamin D3.
How do you actually get it tested?
Vitamin D.
How do you test it?
Because that's something I've always wondered.
Go to a doctor.
Yeah. Oh, the actual normal doctor will do that?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Like a badger.
Well, I just don't trust doctors anymore. So
Well,
that's why I
do
would
you
never
know
go
they
to a
do
doctor.
D3 for people who are vegan?
They do, don't they?
Yeah.
All right, okay.
Any others, or is the game over?
mental clarity.
Mental clarity. Rejuvenate first and foremost. Mental clarity in general, rejuvenate. Mental clarity, say if you've got an exam or something like that. Strength.
12 and a half years of chronic fatigue. I've got low energy in all 3 areas. What would you start with? What would
Serenity
you
and rejuvenate.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the magnesium spray as well. There.
Yes. Yeah, in terms of tea, I go for serenity and rejuvenate. To replace your reserves and then, yeah, get you to a place where you feel more like doing whatever it takes to look after yourself, which is what the serenity really specialises in.
I've got a hip problem.
Hip problem. That would be bones, joints, tendons, so that would be rejuvenate again.
About respiratory areas.
About respiratory? Respiratory will be immune. Immune is more lung tonics than anything else. But the best thing for respiratory problems is really not herbs, which is why we haven't got a formula dedicated to it. It's breathing well and breathing good quality air. So that's still my number one recommendation.
Also, the other thing, I get cramps in the back of my legs, and that seems to get better when I have salt. Is that what is making it better?
Yeah, it's electrolytes, so salt and magnesium.
Yeah.
So if you spray the back of your legs,
Oh yeah, I'm really an
salt and magnesium and potassium, which you get from your fresh greens
Yeah.
and fruits and vegetables in general. So all 3 of those, yeah, coconut water and the iron potassium. So all 3 of those, and you're very likely to have it. Anyone else want to go?
Yeah, go on.
Yes.
I mean, I was looking at strength, but then they all apply to. I can't really figure it out which one would be best. I mean, my digestive system is shot and has been for years, no matter what I do. So, but the latest theory is because of all the adhesions I've got. That's why it won't work unless I go for an operation, which I refuse to do. So,
Based on what you said, I think immune is probably the most relevant for you. And
okay.
yeah, just based on what you told me, and probably rejuvenate as well if you've had low energy for a long time. But based on what's going on for you right now, probably immune.
Energy is not too bad. In
That's
the
what I
moment,
mean,
but
so-
for me, it's more my, the heart problem. But that's all
So-
to do with, with overall immune system and digestive system, both.
And for the
both
heart,
part,
we
yeah.
have serenity.
That I was thinking,
Yeah.
serenity and strength probably.
To make this easy for everyone, how about this? I will do first come, first serve, 2 for the price of 1. Today only, so then you can try 2. And so that'll carry the
How
back
much
again.
is the price of one?
£29 normally. So yeah, 29. I don't have any change though, so.
Oh God, card.
Can we pay
We can
by
pay-
card?
Cool.
Do we have Wi-Fi here?
Doubt it. Sorry, I really don't know.
Oh, I might be able to do a Wi-Fi hotspot for some reason, I don't know.
Checks? Cards? I should be able to take card details. If you write them all down for me, and I will trust you that they're all clear.
Well, I can do
And process them on Monday.
There's 4 things I know, so I can do.
What if rely on integrity?
Then then make sure the one you steal is the Serenity.
dose you up with it when you go away.
One more and then we'll finish.
No, this is not for me. This is for somebody approached me and she has breast cancer and she was like, like wondering if I knew, any things. And I said like, well, I don't know, but if I hear something. So what would you suggest for somebody who's dealing with a situation like that?
A lot, it's not something that any one
Right.
one thing will deal with. But yeah, certainly.
Cancer in general, how do you understand what is cancer? It's basically unhealthy living, right? That brings it on over years. It's not something that happens overnight. It's a slow development, and you're going to have to go a slow development backwards to get it out.
My understanding is that cancer is the next step after Candida. In fact, the body creates cancer to protect itself.
So then Candida, what would you suggest of those for Candida?
But I was going to give you a quick Candida solution, wasn't I?
Yeah.
All right, this is my last bit then, and I will finish. It's been going on ages. 4 steps to getting Candida out of your body. First of all, you have to have done stuff that I'm already talking about, right? If you're basically dehydrated or acidic or whatever, then don't even try and deal with Candida yet. Got to get all the basics down first, right? It's like, with Candida, it's like an enemy has taken over your territory. It's like it's usurped you. And say you're the rightful monarch or whatever, but there's some dictator in power now, right? If you try and overthrow that dictator when he's got a huge army and you've just had all your army shattered, you will be massacred, right? So what you need to do is you need to build up your strength first. You need to build up your reserves first. You need to, accumulate your power base before you attempt to do the overthrowing. So everything that I've said to you up until now has to be applied as not just a maybe, but as I need to be dedicated to that. Once you've got all that done, most important out of everything I just said, by the way, is detoxifying and alkalizing, right? You need to get toxins out because Candida lives in toxins. You can do everything that you want to kill the Candida or to starve them, which is most people's approach, and they will come right back again if they've got mercury to hide behind, for instance. So you have to get that toxins out, especially heavy metal toxins, and you have to be alkalizing. However, the challenge is, if you have chronic systemic Candida throughout your body, you can be alkalizing like green juice, sodium bicarbonate water, and just still be acidic. What the hell? And that's because once they are ensconced in there, they are not going to give up the territory without a fight. So as much as you are trying to turn it alkaline, they will be trying to turn it acid right back again. Now, obviously, it doesn't mean it's pointless. You just got to keep doing, and you will make headway if you persist with it. But it does explain why it's so goddamn hard for some people. Why it's such a struggle. Why just having green juice and stuff doesn't really seem to make them better as much as they hear that some other people it seems to work wonders on. So once you have all that basic stuff done, then you go into a full Candida protocol. And there's 4 pillars to that. I'm going to go through them quickly because it's been a really long talk. But number 1, you have to kill them. A lot of people leave this one out because they think that it's all about terrain. And it is about terrain. What terrain means is like the environment. But once they have taken over the terrain, just trying to change the terrain won't necessarily, and often usually in my experience isn't enough, because they will just change the terrain right back again to what suits them. Parasites are a hell of a lot more intelligent than we might give them credit for. In fact, 90% of the species on Earth are parasites, and they can rewire your DNA, they can make you think thoughts that aren't yours, they can make you feel feelings that aren't yours, so to underestimate them is a bit of like a foolish thing to do. Terrain is important, and it's crucial, as I say, it's the prerequisite, but then when you go to it, you have to actually kill them. You have to actually take the steps to kill them. Herbs can be good for that. Garlic, can be good. Wormwood combination as it's commonly called, which is wormwood, cloves and black walnut, can be good. The mineral silver can be good. Minerals, copper and zinc are also relevant, especially copper, that can kill parasites. However, my experience is if the person's problem really is systemic and has been going on for a long time, like years or decades, you need to move to something more powerful. And I normally say oxygen therapy, which would either be MMS, or if that fails, and usually that doesn't work, that is enough, then even hydrogen peroxide therapy. I'm not going to go into everything about that, but you can freely Google that. MMS, not MSN, MMS can be absolutely miraculous for getting any kind of infestation out of your body, including candida. And it's called sodium chloride, it's an oxidizer. Are you familiar with it?
Yeah,
Mm.
somebody
Got
from
a
the
friend who
part
sells
that
it.
sells it, yeah.
Good.
Wasn't the girl
You weren't happy though.
Well, no, it wasn't me that was working.
I did my teeth with it.
Good.
Yeah.
I never tried it, but I'm sort of thinking, because I talked to Leanne the other day, I'm sort of thinking maybe for my teeth,
Well,
because she said it might be good for that.
There's
There's nothing
indirectly,
wrong with my teeth
because
at
it will
all.
kill the infection, then yeah, possibly, yeah.
But they're just so loose, I mean, you can just
I
literally
mean, I
go
had a
like
head
that with
sign
them.
on that. I mean, severe head sign.
That's probably 'cause you
at the
didn't-
lowest, at half a drop.
That's probably because you didn't do all the other stuff that I'm talking about,
Yeah.
though. You know, like especially keeping your detox exits clear as a way of life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, having bowels consistently clear, having lungs
No, I
consistently
do
clear.
have my bowels clear.
Good.
Every 2 weeks I have to have a colonic, so
Do you do breathing practice every day?
you taught me.
Good. And do you do the skin?
Yes, I do skin brushing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then, but again, this is only step one. So on its
Mm.
own, it isn't necessarily enough, and that's my challenge with some MMS people. They only do the one pillar, right? So next pillar, so first one, kill the bad guys. Pillar number 2, flood the body with good guys.
Right.
And I mean flood, you know, so that one little probiotic
Probiotic
capsule
is
or
nothing.
whatever, no difference whatsoever. I'm really talking about having large amounts of fermented foods, like sauerkraut, right?
Yes.
Homemade, that you make sure you culture with your own starters, yeah, excellent. I actually really prefer kombucha and kefir, again homemade, because it also has beneficial yeasts as well as beneficial bacteria. And it's the beneficial yeast that particularly can take on and tackle that candida, if that's the thing that we're looking at right now.
Right.
So really large amounts. What do I mean by large amounts? I mean properly brewed kombucha or kefir, so where there's no sweetness in it at all.
Right.
It doesn't have to be like vinegar, but it needs to not be sweet. About half a litre to a litre a day.
But you have to make it with sugar or something, don't you?
You make it, but you make sure that it's eaten all of it.
Yeah, because somebody
Yeah,
gave me
like
some
that.
kombucha commercially sold in the store, and it was too sweet. I said, like, this is not right.
The
because-
stuff you buy is always too sweet. The
Yeah.
only stuff I've ever bought that isn't too sweet is a Salmers one at Pure Food and Wine in New York.
Which one?
But that's the only one. No, that's to give you an
Really?
idea. I've travelled the world.
Okay.
That's the only one ever that wasn't too sweet. So yeah, commercially
Had
they
the
always do
same
too
problem
sweet.
with it.
That's why you want to make your own. Again, I'm not going to go into how to make all those today.
Right.
You can just look it up online.
Yeah.
I used to make it, but I can't have the black tea.
Or you
I
can
Just
use
use green
green tea.
No, I can't do any of the normal teas.
Well, then
That's
choose
what
make
it- you
kefir,
know.
make water kefir.
Yeah, I'll try
Yeah,
that.
Water
that's
kefir is great.
Yeah.
Where did you get the starter for the water kefir?
I actually got mine on eBay last time.
There's
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's like £4.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
a really good site that does it as well. They're
Yeah.
really cheap. and that.
Yeah,
It's
there's
10
It's
that.
not one of the top
Sachet.
Google ones.
And ideally from a person. You
I
know?
think
Right.
it was water kefir or
But don't let the
UK, I think.
person kill them.
Well, I
don't do anything with them,
They
like
let them.
everything
Well,
else.
I had to kill
Well-
them because I was travelling. And I couldn't, I couldn't do anything with it. I was travelling for the best part of 6 months this year,
Okay.
and they had to die.
Well, things happen.
Yeah.
You can always, I think you can store them in the freezer.
fridge, yeah, as well.
I think you can
Yeah, but it's
freezer.
only for a month, and that didn't work.
So, going back to crowds, because I make my own crowds, but I don't ever use a starter or anything. I just make cabbage and a bit of salt and a bit of carrot. And
It's ideal to use a starter to make sure that you have the most beneficial
Where did you
organisms.
get started from?
Red 23 do them.
Actually, all you need to do
What's
is
Red
put
23? Is that
probiotic in it.
Yeah.
That's what I
Yeah.
just use the digestive
I
enzymes.
was
Put a
just gonna
capsule
say-
in there.
I'm saying this because it's cheaper. You can
And
just
I've
buy a
never
little sachet.
failed it.
I've
for a
got
couple of
loads
quid.
enzymes at home that
But yeah, if
that
you-
I don't use.
Well, use it for that.
Not enzymes, no, probiotics.
Yeah, probiotic.
I've got
you can-
probiotics.
you can
that
open
you
the capsules and put them in.
recommended cheaper?
But aren't like the
What was the cheaper one that you recommended?
From Red 23, you can get a starter for like a couple of quid.
Is that
So,
online?
red23.co.uk, I think. Yeah.
Right, so we have probiotics, not enzymes.
Not
Right.
enzymes, no.
no,
I
probiotics.
kind of think enzymes are irrelevant, to be honest.
How about airborne lactobacilli? I was told, like, you know, the cabbage has something special that it attracts
No.
airborne
It will.
lactobacilli.
It just guarantees that you've got a good
Okay.
selection.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it won't work
Right, right,
without
okay.
it.
No,
Yeah.
it
Right.
just activates it faster.
Yeah.
The airborne one is really useful when you use the big crock, but when you do it in jam jars, like I do mine in small jam
Yeah.
jars, and that I just, on the whole bit, I put one capsule in there, and within a week it is ready to eat.
Perfect.
You know, so you can eat it beforehand as well, but I find it more palatable after a week. between a week and 2 weeks, and so I have a rolling batch.
So there's flooding the body with good bacteria, and you really want to do that every day for months, right, as part of this process. Not on its own, but as well as everything else, right? Then the third thing is to support the immune system, okay? Now, you're already supporting the immune system by detoxifying properly, right? Most people aren't doing that when they're trying to get rid of candida, because people think of the immune system as like an army, but actually the main job of it is like garbage collectors more than an army. They're just clearing away waste and then the odd, organism. So get rid of the waste first of all, but then other than that, also support the immune system. And the main way to do that is with herbs. So we already talked about it, like the medicinal mushrooms, like the immune formula. That is supporting your body in being able to clear away the debris of this carnage of all these candida that you're killing with the MMS, and to get it out and process it quickly enough. And again, that may be where you struggle with the Alzheimer's. If you're dosing with really high immune supporting herbs, and everything else we've talked about, that might be the thing that made all the difference. And then the last thing, and in my opinion the least important, although it is still relevant, is don't feed them. I mean, it is still, it's not, most people think I'm on a candida diet, they just stop eating sugars and they get a bit of relief, but it doesn't really do that much, and it comes back again not long after you inevitably become weak in some way. Candida takes over, it gets, go on, have a chocolate biscuit. And then you have it, and then you're right back on the cycle again.
It's because they are making you crave the sweets to feed them. It's like they're using you, as you said, when they take over your territory, you think you want something sweet, but really they want the sweet to keep proliferating. And so they're using you and saying like, oh, you want this mango, or you want this, but it's because they want the sugars.
Absolutely. But what happens if you do the MMS protocol, the good one, which is on Jim Humble's site, which is basically taking a dose every hour, not having the big doses once a day, but having a very small dose every hour, and you flood your body with probiotics on a regular basis, then it's quite easy to not eat sugars. In fact, you feel sick a lot of the time, but it's certainly easy enough not to eat sweet food.
Actually, you don't get hungry when you take MMS every hour.
You do, you have to eat, but what I mean is those sugar cravings completely disappear. That's been my experience. So
I found I wasn't hungry. All I wanted to do was just drink.
Yeah, some people have that, yeah. But you want to do it for a long time, like the MMS, if you have a systemic candida issue, you want to do it a couple of months probably, so you can't just not eat during that whole time. You do have to eat. But yeah, make sure that you don't have sugars. And then that is basically
not
it.
having 7 banana smoothie in the morning.
It does include not having bananas, yes. If you feel that way about it, then that's a telltale sign that it's not actually serving you.
Right.
If you're like, oh, I'll take it or leave, oh, banana, oh, no banana. I used to feel that way, and then one day I stopped, and you know what, I never went back again. I had one like a week later. I actually stopped because someone told me it's constipating rather than anything else. I had it a week later, I was like, oh, this is disgusting, and I never had it again.
That's a good sign.
Try having the MMS every hour and the probiotics throughout the day, and you probably won't want it anymore. Okay, so that's it. I'm done. Thank you so much for bearing with me, and for your active involvement and questions and loveliness. I really appreciate all of you so much. Thank you.
One last one.
No, that's it.
No,